Chapter 213. Swish. She abruptly turned around, looking outside the treasury in shock. That man. The formation she set up in that man's room was triggered. He's in danger. Although Luo Qingtong sealed Yi Qianxian's acupoints before leaving, she didn't feel safe leaving him there. She deliberately left a formation in the room with that man's bed as the center, enveloping the entire room. It could trap or kill. At this moment, she sensed that the array formation had been activated. And in a short time, several nodes were destroyed. Clearly, the intruder was very strong. What should she do? Luo Qingtong's expression changed. She stood in front of the secret chamber of the royal treasury. The secret room was heavily guarded. With Luo Qingtong's eye technique, it was impossible for her to open the secret room in such a short period of time without anyone noticing, unless she directly broke the formation. But if she did that, the experts of Tianyu's royal family would definitely be alerted. What should she do? The blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes kept changing. She was a very self-centered person. She always cared about her own gains and losses and didn't care about the lives of others. One could say that she was cold and cruel, but Luo Qingtong was used to living for herself. In order to achieve her goal, she could throw away her principles. In order to survive, she could do anything. With a heaven-defying ability, Luo Qingtong had always been coveted and hunted by the world. She couldn't even count the number of life and death tribulations she had gone through. She once swore that she would never have any extra sympathy. He would never put himself in danger because of others again. But that man, Luo Qingtong clenched her teeth. Reason told her that the most important thing she should do now was to open the secret chamber and take all the treasures inside. That way, the royal family of Tianyu would be so distressed that they wouldn't have the time to bother the Luo family. As for that man, he might not be in danger. But what if? What if that man? Luo Qingtong was indescribably anxious. She knew that she was right to leave that man alone. That man's strength was so strong. Who knew how powerful his enemies were? With her current strength, it would be extremely dangerous for her to participate in a battle of that level. However, she was the one who had fixed that man there. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but curse in a low voice. She suddenly turned around and rushed out of the treasury. I really owe that man. He came to find trouble with her, but she still had to go back and save him. Truly, whoever experienced it would suffer. It wasn't easy for her to enter the royal treasury, but she wasn't able to obtain anything that could shake the foundation of Tianyu's royal family. What a huge loss. If they missed this opportunity, the royal family of Tianyu would be on their guard. They wouldn't be able to succeed so easily next time. That man was her nemesis. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she dashed out of the palace. Just as she was rushing over, in the courtyard reserved by Prince Chunjiu in the spring pavilion, a commotion broke out. Yi Qianxian lay on the bed and stared coldly at the blood-red figures trapped in the formation. Supreme Assassin Pavilion. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the iconic blood-red patterns on their chests. Right at this moment, with a loud bang, the entire array formation was completely destroyed. The assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion looked at the man lying on the bed with murderous intent in their eyes. Chapter 214. Master. Bei Qing and Feng Yu arrived just in time, and stood in front of Yi Qianxian. Master, how are you? Bei Qing rushed over to fight with the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Feng Yu, on the other hand, rushed to Yi Qianxian's side. I can't move. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. That woman had sealed his acupoints. He didn't know how she did it, but he couldn't undo it no matter how hard he tried. He could only wait for 2 hours to pass. Watching the battle in the room, Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes. These people's strength wasn't low. If it was any other day, he could kill them all in minutes. But today, swish swish swish. Luo Qingtong's figure moved quickly. However, just as she left the treasury, she felt something was wrong. Wait, why was she so stupid? Saving that man and robbing Tianyu's imperial family's treasury didn't conflict. She was really led into a ditch by that man's emergency. She could have just robbed the treasury and ran away. At the same time, he could also use this opportunity to get the imperial family of Tianyu to deal with that man's enemies. Why didn't she do such a good thing? Why did she run off to be a lone hero? Really? It's all that man's fault. Her brain was in a mess because of him. Luo Qingtong thought about it and quickly ran back. At this time, Little Pig had already cleaned out the treasury. Seeing Luo Qingtong run out and come back, it jumped onto Luo Qingtong's shoulder and grabbed her clothes with its little hooves, asking, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to loot the Imperial Treasury's secret room." Luo Qingtong raised her head as she spoke. She saw that the surroundings were so bright that even a gust of wind could cause it to spin. Her lips twitched violently. "You're really something." Not to mention the items in the Imperial Treasury, not even the pillars were left for Tianyu's imperial family. This pig's posture of plucking its hair was really good. "That's right, Grandpa Pig, I used to do a lot." "Damn, are you crazy?" Little Pig's eyes widened as he watched Luo Qingtong dash to the front of the Royal Treasury's secret chamber and throw a punch at it. Oh my god. What's wrong with this woman? Did he eat explosives? Would they still be fine after this punch? Tianyu's royal family would explode at any moment. Why did she have to take things so hard? Little Pig felt that whenever he was together with Luo Qingtong, he would never be able to understand her brain. No wonder that man was tricked again and again. He couldn't be blamed for being too stupid, but this woman was too difficult to deal with. Thinking of this, Little Pig inexplicably sympathized with Yi Qianxian. "Of course I'm not crazy." Luo Qingtong coldly snorted, glanced at it, and raised her hand to collect everything in the secret room. That punch just now had landed right on the node of the secret room's defense, which was the easiest way to break through the defense. It was just that the price was a little high. Buzz. Almost at the same time Luo Qingtong broke through the door of Tianyu's Royal Treasury's secret chamber, a shrill alarm sounded. In an instant, everyone in Tianyu's royal palace was alarmed. Treasury. Something happened in the Imperial Treasury. Someone broke into the palace at night and entered the treasury. Quick. Mobilize the troops and put the entire palace under martial law. Everyone, surround and kill the thief. Orders were issued one after another, and the entire Tianyu's royal palace was in chaos. Chapter 215. Little Pig stared dumbfoundedly at the entire Tianyu imperial palace. It was as if a hornet's nest had been poked. In the next second, Little Pig screamed at the top of his lungs. Run! This woman used to blame him for being a troublemaker. She was the one who was the most troublemaker. The entire Tianyu imperial palace was alarmed. Didn't she say, "Sneak into the village, don't shoot me"? I'm going to die because of this woman. I don't need you to tell me that. Luo Qingtong dashed out of the treasury the moment she smashed the door open. The guards of the imperial palace were already rushing toward her. Luo Qingtong came face to face with a dense crowd the moment she stepped out of the treasury. Luo Qingtong's mouth twitched as she looked at the moving figures and heads. Seems like I've gone too far this time. But it's good that I'm big. If I'm not big enough, I'm afraid I can't save that man. I'll take the blame, but you can go and die. She was deeply grateful that the imperial palace of Tianyu was willing to sacrifice themselves for others. You woman, I told you you're crazy, but you didn't believe me. How are we going to escape in this situation? Little Pig stretched out his limbs and prepared to lay down on her shoulder like a corpse. We're dead for sure, okay? I must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have such a master. Little Pig wanted to cry in his heart. Useless. Who told you we're dead for sure? Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes at Little Pig. She licked the corner of her lips, and the smile on her lips was wanton and devilish. I'll show you what it means to show off. Aren't they just a bunch of experts from Tianyu's imperial palace? When she was wanted all over the world, the scene was even bigger, and there were even more experts than this. Didn't she still manage to escape in the end? Although she said that, Luo Qingtong's expression was very serious. With her current strength, it was still too difficult for her to face Tianyu's imperial palace head-on. Fortunately, her goal was only to escape. In this aspect, no one would dare to claim to be first even if she claimed to be second. As long as she was careful, there shouldn't be a problem. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly burst with bloody light. In an instant, there was a gust of wind under her feet, and she floated up with a light tap. Whoosh! She rushed towards the first few Martial King realm cultivators who had arrived and were attacking her. When the latter saw that she actually dared to rush towards them, they were instantly enraged. "Thief, where do you think you're going?" With a boom, several people attacked at the same time. That vast and boundless power instantly surged and blasted towards Luo Qingtong. The young man was dressed in red, and his face was hidden under a piece of red cloth that was torn at the last minute. It was faintly discernible, and he looked like a demon. Shua. Almost no one saw how she moved, they only saw her easily dodging those attacks. Most importantly, her figure had only swayed a few times from the beginning to the end. This oneness of heaven and man. Seeing Luo Qingtong nimbly dodging their attacks, one of the Martial King realm cultivators of the Imperial Palace instantly cried out in alarm. Unity of heaven and man legend had it that when a martial emperor realm cultivator cultivated to the realm of returning to one's original state, he would be able to completely merge his aura with the heaven and earth. From then on, he would be able to move at will. The young man in front of them was actually able to use such a movement technique. But his strength was clearly not that strong. Chapter 216. Swish swish swish. Just as Luo Qingtong said, this was an ultimate show-off. More and more people rushed towards the treasury, but Luo Qingtong remained calm. Countless attacks blasted towards her. Catch her! Luo Qingtong was indescribably calm in the midst of the earth-shattering shouts. Her figure seemed especially graceful and at ease in the midst of these attacks and the crowd of snipers. All the attacks and interceptions were dodged by Luo Qingtong in an instant. Swish swish swish. One attack after another passed by Luo Qingtong's surroundings. Even those who wanted to catch her were easily dodged by Luo Qingtong. She unleashed her eye technique to the maximum. Amidst the densely packed attacks like a fishing net, she cleverly found the point of connection. With just a flash, she continuously dodged those attacks and attempts to capture her. From beginning to end, she didn't slow down at all. Using her eye technique at such a high speed, Luo Qingtong felt a sharp pain in her head. But this kind of pain had its rewards. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up when she saw that the masters from the royal family of Tianyu, who came to capture her, were left behind. She leaped onto the city wall. Swish. The youth's figure was like an extremely graceful butterfly. He paused for a moment above the walls of the imperial palace before flying off into the distance. Countless attacks landed behind her, and all of them turned into foils for her. Trash from the imperial family of Tianyu. So what if this young master has ransacked your treasury? Come and catch me if you dare. The moment she landed, Luo Qingtong rolled on the ground. She looked up and smiled at the strong cultivators of the Tianyu royal family on the city wall. She raised her hand and gave them 2 thumbs down. The smile on her face was contemptuous to the extreme. Evil and arrogant. Bastard. Catch her. Catch her at all costs. The people from Tianyu's royal family who had been chasing after her all this time were enraged by this scene. This little thief, not only did she sneak into the treasury, she even dared to taunt them. Even if they didn't know the meaning of that gesture, they could feel the deep contempt and disdain in Luo Qingtong's smile. Rumble. A group of people angrily rushed down from the walls of the inner palace. Oh my god. Let's run. Luo Qingtong looked at the black mass of people who were infuriated by her. She stuck out her tongue and dashed away. Damn man. Hang in there. I'm coming to save you. The imperial family of Tianyu sacrificed themselves for the sake of others. Little Pig was squatting on Luo Qingtong's shoulder, its 4 little hooves clutching her clothes. It was so messy. It just wanted to see how this woman was going to play herself to death. Rumble. The entire imperial city of Tianyu could hear the commotion. Luo Qingtong led a group of people from the imperial family of Tianyu to the spring pavilion. At the same time, Beiqing was also injured in the fight with the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Fengyu had to protect Yi Qianxian, who couldn't move at all. She couldn't find the time to help him. Under the pressure of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins, the 3 of them were trapped in the middle. Yi Qianxian looked at them coldly as the energy in his body surged rapidly. He was about to find a way to break that woman's shackles. Right at this moment. Rumble. Chapter 217. Rumble. The sound came from afar and soon arrived at the Winter Jasmine Pavilion. Before the people in the courtyard could react, a red figure instantly flipped over the courtyard wall outside and entered the courtyard. Hi. She raised her hand and greeted the two parties in the courtyard. Luo Qingtong heaved a long sigh of relief when she saw Yi Qianxian was protected by Bei Qing's wind feather. Although his body was stiff, he wasn't injured. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I made it in time. This man is still fine. Yi Qianxian and Bei Qing's wind feather were shocked when they saw Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianxian in particular furrowed his cold brows when he saw her. Get lost. His voice was cold. Almost the moment Luo Qingtong appeared, he shouted mercilessly. He didn't say a word when the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion appeared. However, when he saw Luo Qingtong, he immediately shouted, "What is this woman doing here? These assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion are here for me." Other than a Sage Realm expert with 9 blades, there are also several Sage Realm experts with 8 blades who are comparable to a Sage Realm expert. Even Bei Qing and Wind Feather, who were personally trained by him, were no match for them. What is she doing here? Yi Qianxian's brows were raised. The moment he saw Luo Qingtong, the first thought in his mind was to chase her away. He didn't want her to be dragged into this mess. Hey, I say, aren't you a little too heartless? We came here to help you. How can you treat us like this? Little Pig was enraged. It was only after he followed Luo Qingtong here that he understood why this woman was so crazy. She directly poked the hornet's nest that was Tianyu's imperial family. So she came here to save this man. However, this man didn't seem to appreciate it at all. Instantly, Little Pig became displeased. No matter what, this woman was its master, and she had taken such a huge risk for Yi Qianxian. Not only did this man not appreciate her kindness, but he even told them to scram. So what if you're strong? Could he despise others just because of that? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows when she heard Yi Qianxian say get lost. She could feel that the man's voice was not so cold and heartless. Was he trying to get her out of this? He didn't want her to get involved? The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered. At least this man had a conscience. He even knew to ask a weak woman, like her, to leave. She did not come back to save him in vain. Luo Qingtong's eyes swept across the group of people who were confronting Yi Qianxian's trio, and the corners of her lips twitched. F*CKU. Rows and rows of numbers appeared on the screen. Did this man have to have such a strong enemy? Fortunately, she was prepared. Otherwise, she would have been delivering herself to his enemy. Even if she wanted to unseal this man's acupuncture points, it would still take some time. No need. Scram. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Luo Qingtong was not affected at all. Sorry, it seems like I can't scram. There were so many people outside. She rushed out of the imperial family's treasury and purposely went around Tianyu's imperial city to lure a bunch of people here. It was all to make this man's enemy the scapegoat. Now he was telling her to scram? Was he kidding? She couldn't escape even if she had eyes all over her body. Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes at him. Chapter 218. Luo Qingtong was originally riding on top of the courtyard wall. She stood up abruptly, her red robe fluttering in the wind. In the dark night sky, she was as dazzling as a fiery sunset. She raised her hand and snapped her fingers. Under the night sky, her picturesque eyes were extremely dazzling, and her smile was as bright as a flower. Hey, here's something good for you guys. As she spoke, she raised her hand and threw something to the people from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Seeing the thing she threw out, Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing, and Feng Yu felt strange. They didn't know what she was doing. Only Little Pig knew that this woman was going to trick them again. She's going to trick them again. The thing she threw out was none other than the key to Tianyu's imperial family's treasury. Moreover, Luo Qingtong had smeared her aura on the door of the imperial treasury's secret chamber before she left. In other words, the aura of the imperial treasury's secret chamber and the secret chamber's protective measures, which the experts of Tianyu's imperial family relied on to chase after Luo Qingtong, We're all on that key. Now Luo Qingtong threw it to that man's enemy. Naturally, the target of Tianyu's imperial family's hatred became them. Evil. Too evil. Treacherous. Too treacherous. Little Pig didn't know what to say about Luo Qingtong anymore. This woman really had a belly full of evil tricks and little ideas in her bones. Simply too much. Whoever provoked her would be unlucky. What the hell is this? The Supreme Assassin Pavilion's men were currently closing in on Yi Qianxian's group with murderous intent. They didn't even spare a glance at Luo Qingtong. With their current strength, Luo Qingtong's martial general cultivation wasn't even comparable to an ant. However, no one expected that such an ant would actually throw something at them. The nine-blade assassin at the front chopped the key into pieces. His cold gaze instantly turned to Luo Qingtong. Kill her. This young man was simply courting death. However, just as he finished speaking, the silver key that had been cut in half by him instantly exploded into a cloud of dust in the air with a bang. In an instant, the silver powder sprinkled down like a sky full of stars, accurately covering the group of assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Every assassin from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion was stained with a layer of the silver key's powder. At the same time, the silver key's aura. It's done. A bloody light flashed in Luo Qingtong's eyes. In the next second, she flew up into the air and charged towards the courtyard where Yi Qianren and the others were. Bang! The nine-blade assassin pavilion's Luo of Tianyu's men. Come. Of. The item. Let's meet at. Don't get caught by Tianyu's imperial family. Luo Qingtong smiled and winked at the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins who were surrounding Yi Qianxian's group. Her face was full of mischief. That kind of mischievous aura mixed with mischievous and quick-witted agility made her look like an elf in the dark night. She was so mischievous and unscrupulous, full of mischief. Everyone's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. This woman was really a demoness. Chapter 219. He wanted to hold this figure in his arms. He wanted to keep this figure that was like the wind, that he couldn't catch. This figure that always slipped through his fingers and stayed by his side. He wanted to hold her tightly and make sure that she couldn't escape. The figure of Luo Qingtong leaping down was reflected in Yi Qianxian's eyes. That blazing light was reflected in his eyes. It was as if a ball of fire had suddenly lit up in a pool of cold, stagnant water. It almost dyed the pool of water that hadn't moved for thousands of years into the color of a blazing flame. It was just like Yi Qianxian's beating heart at this moment. He looked at Luo Qingtong leaping towards him. The fingers hidden under the sleeves of his robe suddenly moved. Bang! The moment Luo Qingtong jumped down, she directly raised her hand and pressed on the ground. Rise! The youth's voice was crisp and clear, and his smile was wanton. After the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's people waved away the layers of silver dust, they looked up and saw such a scene. The youth in red half knelt on the ground and pressed his palm on the ground. Rumble! The array that had been shattered by the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins started to operate again. But this time, the formation had changed. It had turned into another array. In an instant, countless silver lights enveloped Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. An array was formed in an instant. And it was on a broken array. No one knew how Luo Qingtong did it. The previous array formation had clearly been shattered. She was actually able to restart and form an array again. Obviously, the array she had set up previously was an array within an array. And it was an extremely profound array within an array. This was because there were very few array formations that could reconstruct the array with the remaining nodes after most of the nodes were destroyed. Array Grandmaster. Looking at Luo Qingtong's actions, the leading nine-blade assassin's pupils suddenly shrank and emitted a light of disbelief. This youth who looked to be only 14 or 15 years old was actually an array Grandmaster. How was this possible? Before he could recover from his shock, Luo Qingtong's voice came from outside. The experts of Tianyu's imperial family who had been lured over by her had already rushed in from all directions. Over here. That thief's accomplice is here. Star broken silver. It's the shards of our imperial treasury's key. Damn it. Capture them. Tear them into pieces. The experts of Tianyu's imperial family who had been tricked by Luo Qingtong all the way from the imperial treasury were now bursting with anger. His bloodshot eyes didn't even pay attention to the strength of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's experts. He raised his weapon and charged forward. How dare they provoke the imperial family of Tianyu's imperial family? They'll let them know how powerful they were. These thieves were simply too arrogant. Rumble. The royal family of Tianyu raised their hands and attacked the assassins from Supreme Assassin Pavilion. The assassins of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion were Sage Realm and Half-Sage Realm experts. When had they ever been offended like this? Seeing this group of Tianyu's experts attacking them, they instantly released their auras and annihilated the attacks with a boom. Chapter 220. Oh my god. Inside the array, Luo Qingtong was leading Yi Qianxian and the others to escape. When she turned around and saw this scene, the corners of her mouth twitched. These trash from Tianyu's imperial family. They were always so arrogant. Weren't they experts from some imperial country? There were so many martial kings and martial emperors. How could they be sent flying in just a few moves? Aren't you letting down your arrogant faces? How pathetic. What use were you? She even brought a group of people with her, but they probably wouldn't even last a few moves. And there was this man. What kind of enemy did he provoke? What kind of people did you provoke? They're so strong. Luo Qingtong glared angrily at the man who was half supported by Fengyu Beiqing and asked angrily, "They're from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion." Yi Qianxian's voice was indifferent, as if he didn't care. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and reached out a hand to her. "Come here," he ordered without any hesitation. But Luo Qingtong looked at him with vigilance. Saving people was one thing, but she couldn't get close to this man. Who knew what he would do to her? After all, she had just tricked this man. Although he couldn't move now, he still had two attendants by his side. Luo Qingtong wisely kept a good distance from the three of them. Yi Qianxian looked at her helplessly. The veins on his forehead were about to burst. "You're so far away from me. How are you going to unseal my acupoints? Those people from Tianyu's imperial family won't be able to stop them for long." Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth and said word by word. Did this woman not want to get close to him? Was she that afraid of him? Oh. Luo Qingtong came back to her senses. So this man was talking about unsealing your acupoints. "Don't worry, they'll do it for you. I'll do it, you guys do it." She pointed at Beiqing and Fengyu. "Which one of you will do it? I don't want them." Before Beiqing and Fengyu could finish, Yi Qianxian's cold voice rang out. "You're the one who hit my acupoint. You do it." She wanted to push him to someone else. Was this woman so impatient to approach him that she wasn't even willing to touch him? Guarding against him was like guarding against the plague. Before this, he didn't know who was the one who had done all sorts of things to him. Or could it be that this woman was so fickle? Thinking about this, Yi Qianxian felt an inexplicable fire in his heart. Without thinking, he rejected Luo Qingtong's suggestion to unseal his acupoints. Beiqing and Windfeather, who were beside him, were stunned when they heard this. Master! Was this really their master? When did master become so willful? The more they looked at Yi Qianxian, the stranger their expressions became. She didn't know why, but although it was very strange, she felt that her master was like a child who didn't get to eat candy and was sulking. As soon as this thought popped up in their minds, they instantly quivered. An illusion. It was definitely an illusion. How could master be like this? However, their thoughts couldn't help but drift in this direction. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian in confusion. What was wrong with this man? Wasn't he happy to unseal his acupoints? Why did he have to force her to do it? There was a conspiracy. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she instantly became vigilant. In fact, it wasn't that Luo Qingtong didn't want to help Yi Qianxian. It was just that with her current strength, it would take too much time to unseal his acupoints. It was better to let Beiqing and Fengyu do it. They're faster. Luo Qingtong looked depressed. Can you stop thinking about how to catch me at this time? Deal with the enemy first. Chapter 221. Chase. The nine-blade assassin waved his weapon and ordered coldly, "I'll block these people from Tianyu's royal family. You guys go after the target." His voice was filled with anger. He didn't expect to be tricked by that ant-like young man. It didn't feel good to be slapped in the face by someone he didn't care about. However, what was even more unbearable for him was that his target, which was so hard to obtain, had actually escaped. The other party's head was worth tens of thousands of gold taels. The reward was so generous that even a sage like him couldn't help but be tempted. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party's strength was declining, they wouldn't have dared to take the risk. There were many people in the Supreme Assassin Pavilion waiting to snatch his head. Now that he had found such a rare opportunity, he couldn't let it go. Yes. The 7 or 8 blade assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion answered, and retreated with their weapons. Shwa shwa shwa. Their figures were like blood as they chased after Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. Oh no. Those people are catching up. You guys move faster. Luo Qingtong had left a series of detection devices along the way. When she felt those devices being activated, she was shocked. Master? Beiqing looked at Yi Qianxian with a questioning look. Release it. Yi Qianxian's face was dark as he squeezed the words out from between his teeth. This woman was simply infuriating. Did she think that she could escape like this? When he recovered his strength, he wouldn't give her any chance to escape. Luo Qingtong was also thinking about how to escape. This man had been tricked by her. He must be thinking about how to catch her to vent his anger. If she was caught by him, she would be dead meat. Luo Qingtong thought about the things she had done to Yi Qianxian and felt guilty. She then looked at Yi Qianren's cold gaze that had been staring at her from start to finish. She felt a wave of bitterness in her heart. She was here to save him. Could this man not look at her like she was his prey? Even if she had done something wrong to him. Fine. She had done many things wrong to him, but wasn't she here to make up for it? How could a hell venerable be so petty? How could he face those people who admired and worshipped him like this? Be more magnanimous. Luo Qingtong felt depressed. But no matter how depressed she was, she didn't want to leave now. Although this was the best time for her to escape, this man was busy unlocking his acupoints. There were people chasing after him. He didn't have time to take care of her. But what if she left and this man didn't have time to unseal his acupoints and fell into danger again? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong couldn't move. Forget it. She's sending Buddha to the west. After all, this man's us. She would find a way to escape. There should be a way. Luo Qingtong's mouth twitched at the thought of this man's terrifying strength. No. Just as she was thinking this, swoosh swoosh swoosh. Up ahead, in front of the alley where the 4 of them were hiding, blood-red figures that looked like phantoms suddenly appeared. Damn it. These people came so fast. Looking at the majestic figures, Luo Qingtong felt that something was wrong. She had estimated the time based on martial emperors. These people had arrived much earlier than she had imagined. What kind of strength did they have? Kill. Those Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins waved the weapons in their hands and rushed over without any nonsense. Chapter 222. Master. Beiqing and Feng Yu also noticed the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Seeing the assassins rushing towards them, the 2 of them stopped at the same time. Miss Tong, I beg you to take our master away. We'll be grateful to you with our lives. Feng Yu took a deep breath and stepped forward with Beiqing. They didn't know Luo Qingtong's name, but since she called herself the evil Dr. Ghost Eye and also called herself Evil Eye, it was probably right to call her Miss Tong. They looked at Luo Qingtong's empty eyes, which had a faint bloody light flashing in them, and finally realized that what their master had said was true. There really was such a magical woman in the world. She was blind but could see things. She was not strong but could do things that many strong people could do. She was also proficient in array formations and refining medicine. However, the assassins who came to kill them were at the half-step saint realm. They couldn't pin their hopes on Luo Qingtong anymore. She was able to escape with them before because these assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion looked down on her. Now that they were vigilant, it was impossible for them to succeed again. The only thing they could do was to stop the assassins and let Luo Qingtong take Yi Qianxian away quickly. Although the evil doctor's strength was average, she was good at medicine, poison, array formations and refining weapons. Her abilities were even more strange. To be able to escape from the master's hands time and time again, she definitely relied on more than just luck. Bei Qing and Feng Yu believed that she would be able to take their master away safely while they stopped these assassins. You want me to take him away? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian, who had a cold expression on his face, and her lips twitched uncontrollably. Was this a joke? This man had deliberately planned to catch her. If she took him away, wouldn't she be sending a little white rabbit to the wolf's claws? When this man regained his strength, would she be able to live a good life? What's more, although Luo Qingtong didn't know how strong these assassins were, she could see that Bei Qing and Feng Yu were only slightly stronger than them. Under such a siege, if the two of them stayed behind to cover the retreat, there would only be one outcome, and that was certain death. No, let's go together. Take good care of your master. Luo Qingtong decisively rejected Wind Feather's proposal. They should take care of their own masters themselves. Luo Qingtong had stopped Yi Qianxian to protect herself. She didn't want to kill him or his two subordinates. This kind of enmity was something that could not be done. But this man's strength couldn't be restored in a short period of time. What could she do? Luo Qingtong finally experienced the feeling of shooting herself in the foot. She should have known that this man would meet his enemy at this time. How could she hit his acupoints for so long? At the very least, there should be a backdoor that could be quickly removed. However, she was worried that this man's strength was too strong, so she really didn't leave any way out. Now his balls hurt. Fiske, you guys blocked them first. Let me unseal your master's acupoints. There was no other way. This was the only way. As for what this man would do to her after his powers were removed, she could only resign herself to fate. Looking at his appearance, it didn't seem like he wanted to kill her. What's more, she couldn't tell him the condition of his meridians to save his life, right? But in reality, Luo Qingtong didn't like the feeling of not being in control of her own fate. Instead, it was in the hands of others. But now, in order to save this man, there was no other way. Swish. She flew to Yi Qianxian's side and quickly began to unseal his acupoints. Chapter 223. Bang. The two of them blocked a ray of cold light that was aimed at Yi Qianxian. Seeing that the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion had already closed in on them, they could only fight first. They could only hope that the demonic doctor could quickly remove the sealed power in their master's body. Otherwise, they would all die here. Rumble. Bei Qing and Feng Yu tried their best to block the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Luo Qingtong also frowned and used all the strength in her body to unseal Yi Qianxian's acupoints. When she said that Feng Yu and Bei Qing were faster at unsealing his acupoints, she wasn't lying to Yi Qianxian. Those two were really faster at unsealing his acupoints than her. Who asked her to be so weak now? And she had sealed his acupoints too tightly. She was afraid that he would break through. Great, now she had dug her own grave. Didn't you say that I'm too strong and you can't unseal my acupoints? Yi Qianxian snorted. This woman's words couldn't be trusted. She clearly didn't want to get close to him. Luo Qingtong paused and almost told this man to stop fooling around. Was it really good to be so calculative with her at this time? Was it really good for him that she couldn't unseal his acupoints? Did he have to be so vengeful? Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes at the sky and decided to ignore his words. Yi Qianxian didn't get a response and was angry. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly felt a chill on his body. Rip. The thick embroidered ice robe on his body was instantly torn in half along with his inner clothes. The words that Yi Qianren was about to say were stuck in her throat. Soon after, it turned into an angry and embarrassed question. Woman, what are you doing? Even if she coveted him, she shouldn't have torn his clothes at this time. Does this woman even have the slightest bit of modesty as a woman? Yi Qianxian's heart was filled with anger and shame. On the other side, Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who were fighting against the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, heard the sound of the robe being torn and subconsciously looked back. They were so shocked that they almost fell down. Oh my God! What was the evil doctor doing? Wasn't she a girl? Why did she tear her master's clothes? Wasn't it inappropriate to molest his master at this time? Evil doctor, although your temperament is unrestrained and you don't care much about the boundaries between men and women, at this time, isn't it more important to get down to business? The two of them looked at each other, and inexplicably felt that it was a little unreliable for them to entrust their master to the evil doctor. But soon, they were relieved by Luo Qingtong's next move. What's your name? It's hard to transmit power through clothes, Luo Qingtong said unhappily. Since he had to unseal the acupoints as soon as possible, the faster the transmission of power, the better. The more accurate, the better. How could he do it without taking off his clothes? How much time would that waste? Yi Qianxian was rendered speechless by her. This woman was full of excuses. She always had an excuse. Humph. Then shouldn't I thank you for not stripping my clothes and sealing my acupoints when we were in the bathtub? Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth. Coughed that, let bygones be bygones. Luo Qingtong coughed awkwardly and changed the topic. She really wanted to tear his clothes. But did he give her the chance? Otherwise, how could she have restrained him for 2 hours? Luo Qingtong muttered in her heart as her tender fingers tapped the man's back. Chapter 224. The muscles on his back subconsciously tightened. Perhaps it was because the girl was behind him and couldn't see, but Yi Qianxian's 5 senses became even more acute. His senses couldn't help but follow the girl's movements. He only felt that her fingertips were round and smooth, and her skin was delicate and smooth. It was as if she had no bones. Every touch was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. But even so, Yi Qianren felt as if a ball of fire had been ignited at the spot on her back that was touched. Clearly, this woman's strength wasn't worth mentioning to him. But every time she touched him, he felt as if he was being burned for some reason. What did this woman do to him? Why did she make him feel this way? One had to know that even a Sage Realm expert wouldn't be able to hurt him and make him feel this way. This woman had only touched him lightly. How could he feel this way? Yi Qianxian's heart was tormented. He wanted to grab Luo Qingtong's hands that were roaming all over his body, but he couldn't move. Luo Qingtong was also filled with depression. More than half of Yi Qianxian's acupuncture points had been unsealed. But even with the small remaining ones, it was still extremely difficult for her to unseal them. The main problem was that this man's body was too hard. Luo Qingtong indignantly poked Yi Qianxian's acupuncture points on his back. She felt that the energy she was transferring was intermittent. She still had to transfer energy a few more times. Did this man have to be so strong? Apart from his meridians, the values of the other parts of his body were all at an inhuman level. This was the first time Luo Qingtong had been so anxious while unsealing his acupuncture points. Especially in order to lock down Yi Qianren's strength. She had used the most difficult pressure point technique. It was easy to seal his acupuncture points, but when unsealing them, the order and strength required were a lot of things. But when Luo Qingtong unsealed his acupuncture points, she discovered that this technique had been loosened by the impact. It made it easier for her to unseal his acupuncture points. And her speed was also a little faster. This man must have done it. Luo Qingtong gained a new understanding of Yi Qianxian's strength. She had specially modified this pressure point sealing technique, according to the condition of his meridians. In addition, his strength had weakened to such an extent. Yet he was still able to use this pressure point sealing technique? What a freak! Luo Qingtong thought as she unsealed Yi Qianxian's acupoints. As her finger moved downwards, when it was close to the tailbone, Yi Qianren finally couldn't take it any longer. Just as he finished speaking, there was a loud bang. On the opposite side, Beiqing, who was already injured, found an opening and was forced to retreat with a slash. In the next second, the assassins from Supreme Assassin Pavilion, who had seized the opportunity, charged over with their weapons in hand. No. It's too late. Luo Qingtong's heart trembled slightly. She clenched her teeth when she saw the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion charging at her. Her eyes glowed with a bloody light as she raised her hand and flung Little Pig away. Stop them first. Hey. It can't be like this every time. I really can't do it this time. These people are at least half sages. I can't stop them. Little Pig cried miserably as it was thrown away. It can't be like this. Why is it always the one being abandoned? I can stop them. Hold on. Luo Qingtong said in a low voice. 5 breaths. If she had 5 more breaths, she would be able to unseal this man's acupuncture points. Boom. Chapter 225. Bam, bam, bam. Under the shocked gazes of Little Pig and Beiqing Fingyu, the bodies of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins exploded one after another. It was as if they were attacked by something. Their bodies were riddled with countless wounds. But in reality, no one had touched them. They weren't attacked at all. However, the explosions came one after another. Flowers of blood bloomed on the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins. In an instant, the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins' auras weakened by a lot. They were obviously injured. Was this woman the one who did this? Even Yi Qianren's eyes flashed fiercely when she saw this. Not to mention Beiqing and Little Pig. Wow! How did this woman do it? How could she injure the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins with her martial general strength? Little Pig's eyes were filled with shock. He even forgot that he was thrown out as a shield. Wait. It's those silver shavings. They're the silver shavings from the broken key. Little Pig suddenly squealed. He finally realized what was going on. At that time, the silver shavings exploded and scattered on the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins. He thought that Luo Qingtong did it on purpose, so that the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins would take the blame. Now that he thought about it, could it be that things weren't as simple as that? This woman had already done something to the silver shavings. Taking the blame was only one of the reasons. The most important thing was the hidden power in the silver shavings. Wow. This woman hid it too well. No one paid any attention to the silver shavings. Who would have thought that there was hidden power in them? Now that the silver shavings exploded, the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's half-step Sage Realm assassins were heavily injured. This woman's scheme was simply amazing. Stop talking nonsense. Stop them. Luo Qingtong's brows were tightly knitted. Her hands didn't stop moving. The silver shavings could injure the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins, but they couldn't make them lose their ability to move. If they couldn't stop them, they would still die. Luo Qingtong was also going all out. She had originally planned to use this trump card after saving this man, to prevent these people from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion from chasing after her. However, these people were much stronger than she had imagined. They had caught up so quickly. Luo Qingtong had no choice but to use it in advance. She could only hope that she would be able to hold off the Supreme Assassin Pavilion for a while longer to buy some time for her. Bang bang bang. Little Pig rushed toward the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. With the help of Beiqing, he tried his best to stall them. However, the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion seemed to have realized something. They looked at the half-naked Yi Qianxian standing next to Luo Qingtong with murderous intent in their eyes. Bang! One of the half-saint experts facing Wind Feather suddenly retracted his saber and blocked Wind Feather's weapon with his own body. Kill the target, he said in a deep and hoarse voice. In the next second, the half-saint experts behind him quickly broke through Wind Feather's line of defense and rushed toward Yi Qianxian and Luo Qingtong. This time, Luo Qingtong didn't have any means to stop them. Moreover, Yi Qianxian's acupoints hadn't been unsealed yet. Woman, run. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Chapter 226. Luo Qingtong didn't say anything. The blood-red light in her eyes kept flashing as she activated her pupil technique to the extreme. She was calculating how to bring Yi Qianxian out of the encirclement. But it wouldn't work. These people were too strong and there were too many of them. If it was just Luo Qingtong alone, she could barely break out of the encirclement. But if she brought Yi Qianxian along, it would be impossible. What's more, this man was their target. Even if she rushed out with him, these people would rush up again. At that time, they still wouldn't be able to escape. Luo Qingtong glanced at the injured Bei Qing and Feng Yu. Her eyebrows tightly knitted together. Did she really have to leave this man behind? But why? When this thought flashed through her mind, she suddenly felt a little guilty. Luo Qingtong had experienced too many schemes and betrayals in her previous life. In the end, she developed a self-centered personality. As long as she was well, the whole world could die. She had experienced countless life and death struggles. In order to live, she could do anything, by hook or by crook, for freedom. If this man wanted to catch her, she could have ignored his life and death. But this man didn't really hurt her. In the end, he even went easy on her several times. With Luo Qingtong's personality, she naturally knew that if Yi Qianxian really wanted her to die, he had countless opportunities to do so. If he really wanted to hurt or kill her, he wouldn't have been trapped here by her. Now he was telling her to leave? Luo Qingtong felt that her heart, which had been as firm as a rock for thousands of years, was suddenly touched. You don't blame me? She looked at the man's cold and handsome face in front of her with a conflicted expression. Suddenly, there was an indescribable irritation in her heart. I trapped you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been unable to fight back against these people's attacks. With this man's strength, it was impossible for him to not be able to deal with these people. Looking at the scene of these people attacking with their lives, it was obvious that they were also afraid of him recovering his strength. This venerable one accidentally fell into your trap. It was this venerable one's mistake. Why should I blame you? Yi Qianxian frowned. He didn't know why Luo Qingtong asked such a question. What was there to ask? He had been immobilized completely, because of his own carelessness. Blame her? He didn't have the habit of shirking responsibility. If he hadn't given this woman a chance, she wouldn't have been able to succeed. However, did this woman's question prove that she actually cared about his opinion, and was afraid that he would blame her? At the same time, she was worried about him? Yi Qianxian felt an inexplicable sense of comfort as he thought about it. Don't worry. I won't die so easily. In this world, there are as many people as ants who want to take my life, but none of them have ever succeeded. This time will be no exception. Let's go. As he spoke, he looked coldly at Luo Qingtong, indicating for her to leave quickly. Although this woman was a little clever, she also had some tricks up her sleeves. She had tricked him several times. But that wasn't true strength after all. In front of these half-Saint Realm assassins, it was simply nothing. These people's target was him. If she left now, she would still be able to escape. Luo Qingtong had been carefully watching Yi Qianxian's expression the entire time. After discovering that he wasn't lying at all, she felt even more conflicted. Her conscience hurt even more, didn't it? This man still didn't blame her at this time. How could she just leave like that? Even if she tricked people, she still had her principles, okay? If something really happened to this man because of this, she wouldn't be able to rest easy for the rest of her life. Chapter 227. Yi Qianxian was stunned by Luo Qingtong's words. He didn't quite understand what Luo Qingtong meant. Why did this woman want him to close his eyes at this time? Why were there so many strange thoughts in her mind? Stop fooling around and leave. He frowned and said in a low voice. He couldn't let her do as she wished at this time. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't be able to resist those half-saint assassins. You're such a troublesome man. Luo Qingtong had been conflicted for a long time before she made up her mind. What she was going to do next might expose some of the secrets of her ocular technique. It might even make this man hate her, and reveal a trump card that could be used against this man in the future. But now she couldn't care less. Since this man was in danger because of her, then she would return the favor to him. She would treat it as a gift to him for being merciful to her. From now on, they didn't owe each other anything. Swoosh. Luo Qingtong stomped her feet, and pounced on Yi Qianxian. The latter was preparing to forcefully open the remaining acupoints. When Luo Qingtong unsealed his acupoints just now, he had already discovered something. Although forcefully opening his acupoints like this would cause great damage to his already weakened strength, it was more than enough to deal with these half-saint assassins. One had to know that even when his meridians were severely injured, he could still defeat the adult divine sky-connecting beast. To Yi Qianxian, anyone below the saint realm was just an ant. However, Luo Qingtong's pounce interrupted his forceful opening of his acupoints. Not only that, Yi Qianxian's eyes widened in an instant. Luo Qingtong wrapped her arms around his neck and suddenly kissed him on the lips. This kiss was not like the one in the bathtub, which was only for seduction. It was extremely close and deep. The young girl's fragrant tongue entered his mouth and entangled with his. "Close your eyes." Meeting the man's deep, cold, and shocked eyes, Luo Qingtong felt ashamed and angry. She wasn't used to this kind of kiss that didn't have any ulterior motives. Especially this time, it was to help this man, which made her feel even more awkward. She had never been so selfless before. The 2 times she had kissed a man before, if it wasn't an accident, it was to escape. It was completely different, alright? When Yi Qianxian heard her words, he narrowed his eyes slightly. Not only did he not close them, he even opened his sharp eagle eyes and stared at her unblinkingly. That gaze was filled with aggression. Luo Qingtong felt uncomfortable under his gaze. She cursed under her breath and closed her eyes. If he doesn't want to shut up, I'll shut up myself. Streams of energy flowed from Luo Qingtong's mouth into Yi Qianxian's body and quickly circulated along his main meridians. This was the same circulation route that Luo Qingtong had used to check on Yi Qianxian's meridians. Because their lips were connected this time, Luo Qingtong didn't hold back any of the energy that she had transferred into Yi Qianxian's body. Therefore, after a few cycles, a large amount of energy from the man's body was transferred into her body. It was impossible for Yi Qianxian not to feel such a turbulent surge of energy. He looked at the young man in front of him who had his eyes tightly closed. His gorgeous and bewitching beauty was like a spirit that could suck people's souls. The light in his eyes flashed fiercely. In the next second, he stirred up the energy in his body and coordinated it with Luo Qingtong's energy. Yi Qianxian didn't know why Luo Qingtong was able to absorb his energy for her own use. Chapter 228. Swish Swish Swish. With Yi Qianxian's cooperation, Luo Qingtong's aura skyrocketed at a terrifying speed in an instant. Originally, she was able to absorb Yi Qianxian's energy for her own use. However, because she wanted to check on his injuries, she didn't do it deliberately. This time she completely let go. Because of Yi Qianxian's cooperation, the absorption process was extremely smooth. In just an instant, Luo Qingtong's strength rose to a terrifying level. Compared to those half-saint experts, there wasn't much difference. However, the temporary increase in strength caused Luo Qingtong to feel the pain that almost made her body explode. And because she had absorbed too much of the man's power this time, Luo Qingtong felt like she was going to explode like a balloon at any moment. Boom! At this moment, those half-step Saint Realm experts also charged forward. Resisting the pain in her body, Luo Qingtong pulled Yi Qianxian to the side to dodge. She quickly used her eye technique to find the best place for the man to dodge. Then, she raised her hand and blasted out an attack, blocking the attack of the first half-saint expert that rushed over. Boom boom boom. Luo Qingtong pulled Yi Qianxian and dodged the attacks of those half-saint experts while fighting back. At the same time, she hurriedly said, "Quick, teach me your strongest move." The energy in her body had to be released. Otherwise, her body would explode and she wouldn't be joking. This man was simply abnormal. Luo Qingtong didn't expect that he would still have such powerful strength after being crippled by more than half of his strength. If she didn't release this energy now, she would have to suffer the consequences of her own actions. This sovereign is different from ordinary people. Until now, I've only cultivated the heaven battling art. Yi Qianxian's eyes flickered rapidly. He didn't mention that only he could cultivate the heaven battling art. Moreover, its power was heaven-defying. It could easily destroy the world. Even with his aptitude, it took him a lot of time to master it. This woman, before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong grabbed his hand. "It's fine as long as you have it. Quickly teach me." Just one move is enough. Luo Qingtong's meridians were in excruciating pain. If this continued, she would follow in this man's footsteps. All her meridians would burst or something. All right. Yi Qianxian's voice was steady. He didn't care that in the cultivation world, cultivation techniques couldn't be divulged to outsiders. This was because techniques represented a cultivator's biggest lifeline and trump card. If others understood your techniques, it meant they had a grasp of your lifeline. If someone wanted to target you, according to your cultivation method, they would be able to think of a way to deal with you. Therefore, cultivation techniques was a cultivator's biggest taboo. Yi Qianren didn't care at all. This woman had given him too many surprises. He wanted to see how far she could go. This was the only woman he had met that he couldn't see through no matter how he looked at her. In this world, there was finally someone who could share the title of evildoer with him. Yi Qianxian looked deeply at Luo Qingtong and told her the heaven battling art's incantation. Heaven battling art, heaven and earth become one, limitless earth splitting. Following Yi Qianxian's narration, the bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered fiercely. I technique activated. Extreme evolution. Perfect replication. Yi Qianxian's narration was equivalent to describing a scene of him using the heaven battling art in front of Luo Qingtong. Chapter 229. Bang! Luo Qingtong suddenly took a step forward amidst the attacks of those people. The life and death sword appeared in her hand. Even in this heart-wrenching situation, Luo Qingtong still remembered Tian Mingzi's instructions. She couldn't let anyone see the true form of the life and death sword. She didn't activate the death blade state. She swung the life and death sword in its original form. The black and white light of the sword flashed, setting off the young man's red clothes. It was like a rich painting of flowers and birds colliding with a light painting of mountains and rivers. It gave people a visual shock to the extreme. The beautiful young man in red clothes collided with the simple black and white light in his hand. It was as if he had stepped out of hell and was holding the goddess of purgatory, who could take people's lives. When the sword swung down, heaven and earth shook and everything fell silent. The wind and clouds surged, and no stars or moonlight could be seen. Only the vast earth, the surging wind, and the boundless murderous aura. The first move of the heaven-conquering art, seizing heaven's fortune. Swoosh! Luo Qingtong raised her arms and held the life and death sword horizontally in front of her. In the next second, the sword light was piercingly cold. With this as the starting point, it suddenly swept out horizontally. In an instant, a ray of light seemed to appear between heaven and earth. In the dark night sky, it was as if a straight line had been cut open. In that dense dark sky, a ray of light that was enough to split the heavens was drawn. It illuminated this moment of midnight. Like the dawn of the sky, no one could stop it. No one could stop it. Boom. That sword light shot out in a straight line. In an instant, the half-saint assassins who had rushed to Luo Qingtong were quickly turned into ashes. Ah! Screams rang out one after another. Those Supreme Assassin Pavilion assassins who swore to kill Yi Qianxian never expected that they would die in the hands of an unknown young man. And this young man was clearly only at the martial general realm. A young man who was like an ant in their eyes and could be easily killed had his strength skyrocketed in an instant. With just a single strike, he had completely annihilated all of them. Even if they were to repeat it 100 times, these Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins would never have imagined such an outcome. Boom. After the sword light killed all the assassins from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, it didn't slow down in the slightest. Instead, it continued on its way. Beiqing, Windfeather, and Little Pig were dumbfounded. They almost forgot to dodge when they saw the sword light flying toward them. Oh my God! The evil doctor, this woman, is too powerful. How did she do it? The two people and the pig were dumbfounded. If they hadn't reacted at the last second and dodged, they would have been killed by this sword. The sword light exploded in midair, creating a huge vortex in the sky. Their expressions were indescribably sluggish. Beiqing and Fengyu in particular were so shocked that they were speechless. This was Master's famous skill. It's a move that only Master can use. How did the evil doctor use it? And how did she become so powerful? She killed all the half-saint realm experts with one strike. Oh my god. Her strength is enough to crush them. How did she do it? Yi Qianxian's emotions fluctuated violently when he saw Luo Qingtong use the killer move that only he could use. This woman was destined to be his. Crack! Yi Qianxian's acupuncture points were opened at this moment. Chapter 230. Phew. Let me lean on it for a bit. Luo Qingtong didn't expect that the move Yi Qianxian taught her would be so powerful. She was shocked when she saw the group of semi-sage realm assassins in front of her turn into ashes under her sword. Especially when the sword light had destroyed so many sage-to-be powerhouses. But it did not diminish. Instead, it exploded into a huge whirlpool in the air. The corners of her lips twitched violently. Luo Qingtong felt that even if she used the perfect copy ability of her ocular technique, it seemed that she couldn't perfectly copy the complete strength of the other party's heaven-conquering art. Because the strength in her body wasn't enough. It could be seen how powerful this man was. It was a move that could kill so many half-step saint assassins with one move. And it was still incomplete power. Then how strong was the complete power? Thinking that she had provoked such a man, Luo Qingtong really couldn't feel happy at all. The more she came into contact with this man, the more terrifying she felt. Did she use up all the good luck from her previous life in this rebirth? Why did she encounter such a peerless monster as soon as she transmigrated? As the supreme ocular technique master of the 24th century, Luo Qingtong had never been so helpless against anyone. But she was helpless against this man who kept chasing after her and wanted to catch her. Thinking about it really made her balls hurt, didn't it? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she thought about it. She used up all her strength and leaned her weak and sore body on the man's body. You're such a man. If only you were a little weaker. She raised her hand and poked the man's strong arm muscles. She didn't know that the man under her had already opened his acupoints and recovered his strength. He could hold her like a chicken with one hand. At this moment, Yi Qianren was accumulating his strength, preparing to take down this woman who always surprised him, but also made him gnash his teeth in anger every time. However, when Luo Qingtong leaned on him, his whole body trembled fiercely, and the brewing strength in his body was interrupted. The girl's body was as soft as cotton. Because she didn't know that Yi Qianxian had already unsealed her acupoints, Luo Qingtong didn't put her guard up against him at all. She unceremoniously placed all her weight on him. She was so tired because she wanted to save him. He even exposed a part of his trump card. What was wrong with letting her lean on him? She hadn't even complained about how hard this man's muscles were. Did he dare to complain that she was too heavy? With this thought in mind, Luo Qingtong instantly felt at ease and treated Yi Qianxian as a large bolster, relying on him to recover her strength. Yi Qianxian's heart felt very strange. He could feel Luo Qingtong's entire body relax as she leaned on him. She was like a lazy cat, lazily arrogant, and delicate as she hung her entire body weight on him. This was the first time this woman had approached him so unguarded, revealing a side that she would never reveal in front of him before. Yi Qianxian remembered that when he asked her to come closer, this woman instantly jumped 3 feet away with a look of vigilance. If it wasn't for her uneasy conscience, she would have run away at that time. This wild and untamed woman rarely had such a gentle and docile side. Thinking about it, Yi Qianxian's brows slightly relaxed. Forget it, I'll let her lean on me for a while. I'll catch her later. Chapter 231. Yi Qianxian furrowed his brows when he saw the slight fatigue in Luo Qingtong's eyes. He unconsciously relaxed the muscles on his body that had suddenly tensed up when this woman suddenly leaned over, allowing her to lean on him more comfortably. Let's just treat it as a reward for this woman being so obedient. As he thought this, he absent-mindedly followed her words and asked, "Is that so? Why?" This woman's way of thinking was really strange. She actually hoped that he would be a bit weaker. In this world where the strong were revered and the weak were treated as lowly as ants, who wouldn't hope that they or the people around them would be a bit stronger? Only then could they be protected. The men and women around Yi Qianxian who were tirelessly trying to climb into his bed were almost all here for his strength. If he didn't have this strength, who knew how many of those who kept saying that they admired him would still be alive? Yi Qianxian sneered as he thought this. He was actually a bit curious about Luo Qingtong's answer. He wanted to know why this woman would have such a strange idea. Because this way, I can keep you by my side, Luo Qingtong said without hesitation. If this man was weaker than her, he didn't need to be that much weaker. As long as he was just a little bit weaker, she would be able to keep him by her side in a matter of minutes. This voice was really indescribably pleasant to the ears. It was cold and noble, elegant and dignified. It was low and deep like the sound of a bell or drum, but clear and pleasant like the sound of a string instrument. Just listening to it was enough to make one pregnant. Unfortunately, this man's strength was too strong. The danger level was off the charts. It was impossible to control. Thus, Luo Qingtong's idea was just a thought. It was better for her to stay away from such a dangerous man, especially when he was scheming all sorts of ways to catch her. For the sake of her own life and freedom, staying far away from him was the best plan. Luo Qingtong didn't want to become someone's prey that was imprisoned in the palm of his hand. She couldn't beat this man in a fight, and had a bunch of grudges with him. Just thinking about it made her heart tired. Sigh. You want to stay by my side? Automatically interpreting Luo Qingtong's words as if she wanted to stay by his side, Yi Qianxian turned his head to look at the little woman leaning on him. His heart was beating slightly, and he felt inexplicably happy. It turned out that this woman was not lying when she said that she admired him. She really liked him. He was just too embarrassed to admit it before, right? Yi Qianxian thought of the women who tried to get close to him. Many of them pretended to be indifferent to attract his attention. However, the pretentious attitude of those people only made him feel disgusted. This woman's hypocrisy made him feel very comfortable. Yes. Luo Qingtong didn't notice that the order of his words was reversed. She said regretfully, "Unfortunately, you're too strong." Sigh. At this point, she sighed heavily. As Yi Qianxian listened, the corners of his lips curled up. From what he heard Luo Qingtong's words, this woman wanted to stay by his side, but didn't dare to because he was too strong. No wonder she felt that it would be better if he was a little weaker. As Yi Qianxian thought about it, he felt very happy in his heart. This sovereign's strength is irreversible. However, if you want to stay by this sovereign's side, this sovereign. Before he could finish speaking, on the other side, Luo Qingtong had rested for a while. She felt that the pain in her meridians had lessened by a lot. Her exhausted strength had also returned. She immediately stretched and stood up. Lord, thank you for being my body pillow. Chapter 232. Luo Qingtong's hand that was waving suddenly paused. Seeing the man's face darken in an instant, she had a bad feeling in her heart. Oh my God! When did this man unseal his acupoints? There are clearly 2 more acupoints that haven't been unsealed. If it weren't for this, Luo Qingtong wouldn't be so relaxed as she leaned on this man and chatted with him. Now that she suddenly realized that Yi Qianxian's acupoints had been unsealed, she instantly took a deep breath and turned around to run. Where do you think you're going in front of this sovereign? Seeing Luo Qingtong's overconfident attempt to escape, Yi Qianxian coldly snorted. The joy he felt from Luo Qingtong's implicit confession was completely gone. This woman, he didn't even care that she was weak. Why was she still running? Was he so scary that she had to avoid him like he was a snake or scorpion? But his own strength wasn't something he could control. Yi Qianxian's heart was filled with anger, but he forgot that he didn't have such thoughts when he first caught Luo Qingtong. The latter wasn't stupid. Of course she would run. Otherwise, what good would come out of it if she was caught? But his attitude towards Luo Qingtong had changed. He knew, but Luo Qingtong didn't. If she didn't run, would she be waiting for death? Hey. You're such an unreasonable man, aren't you? In any case, I just saved you. How can you turn hostile and not recognize me? If you want to turn hostile, you have to wait until I'm gone. Bang! Luo Qingtong turned around and bumped into a wall of air. Not only that, but she was also surrounded by walls of air in all directions. Seeing the man's surging aura and the walls of air that blocked all her escape routes, Luo Qingtong wanted to cry but had no tears. Good intentions don't have good karma. Donghua and the wolf. The farmer and the snake. This damned man, if I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have saved him. I would have just let him perish under the pursuit of those assassins from Supreme Assassin Pavilion. No one repaid kindness with enmity like him. Seeing the man's gloomy face approaching her step by step, Luo Qingtong was forced to lean against the wall of air behind her. Yi Qianxian was determined not to let her escape this time. The walls of air around Luo Qingtong was so dense that she couldn't even find an opening for insects to fly out, let alone a living person like her. Not to mention that she had an eye technique. Even if she had a divine artifact, it would still be useless. She couldn't run even if she dug a hole. That man had laid out a thick layer of energy on the ground. Okay. He's preventing her from escaping from underground. She's not AST. Luo Qingtong felt like vomiting blood. But she didn't know that she had all kinds of strange ways to escape. Yi Qianren was also taking precautions against her. This time, he finally managed to stop this woman. He would never let her go again. After suffering a few losses, Yi Qianren had learned her lesson. It didn't matter if it was useful or not. All he had to do was seal them all. He'll tie this woman up later and personally carry her back. Let's see if she can still escape. Wait. Lord, let's talk things out. Seeing the man's 1.9 meters tall oppressively approaching, almost filling up the small space she was in, Luo Qingtong's heart was in her throat. Although I've tricked you a few times, I've still helped you. You can't be so unjust. You should at least let me go. Next time, catch me openly. What's the point of taking advantage of someone's perilous state? I thought you didn't know how to write the words taking advantage of someone's perilous state? Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. This woman still had the nerve to mention this to him? Which time didn't she take advantage of him? Luo Qingtong was instantly speechless. Chapter 233. Bang. While Yi Qianxian's expression changed, Luo Qingtong also subconsciously looked in the direction he was looking at. However, before she could raise her head, the man pulled her to his side with a swoosh. At the same time, he opened his hand, and a blood-colored full moon instantly rushed forward. Boom! Luo Qingtong staggered. She could feel that not far behind her, there was a fierce collision of attacks coming in all directions. Luo Qingtong's body was still a little unstable. She almost fell to the ground when the attack hit her from behind. At the side, a strong arm suddenly stretched out from the side and hugged her waist, pulling her to his side. The man's breath was boiling hot. His naked upper body was so close to Luo Qingtong's back. Sage Realm. Yi Qianming narrowed his eyes as he looked at the nine-blade assassin who was flying towards him. His handsome face, which was like a celestial being, had an extremely cold expression. This person came at the perfect time. He even dared to attack this woman. If it weren't for Yi Qianxian's quick reaction, that attack would have broken through the air wall he had set up and exploded on Luo Qingtong's body. The opponent was testing him. The nine-blade assassin had seen the scene where he targeted this woman. Obviously, he was testing whether this woman could become his weakness. This nine-blade assassin deserved to die. Yi Qianxian's eyes turned cold. The blood-colored saber light in his eyes was indescribably biting cold. Master. Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who had been pretending to be invisible at the side and pretending not to see what their master was doing, hurriedly rushed back and stood in front of Yi Qianren. Little Pig also ran back to Luo Qingtong's side. He lowered his head and slipped into Luo Qingtong's sleeve. Yi Qianxian glanced at it coldly and pretended not to see it. Initially, he wanted to capture this pig because he didn't believe what it said. He wanted to interrogate it about the existence of the ancient medicinal formula. But now that he had found this woman who could heal him, it didn't matter whether he could get the ancient prescription or not. Most importantly, this pig was the woman's contracted beast. Yi Qianxian naturally wouldn't allow Luo Qingtong's strength to be damaged. For this, he was willing to let Little Pig go. Know your place and protect her well. Don't try to play any tricks. Your little tricks are nothing in front of me. His cold voice resounded in Little Pig's mind. The latter was already frightened to begin with. When he suddenly heard the voice in his heart, his 4 hooves instantly went soft, and he knelt down in Luo Qingtong's sleeve. Don't ask me why I'm so cowardly. This man, he wasn't an ordinary person at all. Otherwise, why would Little Pig avoid him like the plague and even sign a heaven and earth contract with Luo Qingtong? Little Pig couldn't help but nod his head when he saw that this man had no intention of capturing him. Isn't it just taking care of this woman and not playing any tricks? I promise I'll do it. In any case, it's fine as long as I play tricks on others. Moreover, Luo Qingtong isn't someone to be trifled with. She's almost as perverted as this man. In front of her, it was completely eaten alive, okay? Didn't you see that I was used as a shield again? Little Pig's tactfulness caused the coldness in Yi Qianxian's eyes to lessen. He lowered his head and looked at the woman in his arms. Chapter 234. Woman. Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes and glanced at the 9-blade assassin's attack. He pulled Luo Qingtong in front of him and kissed her heavily. Before Luo Qingtong could react, she was forced to accept the kiss. Hey, you. After the kiss, Luo Qingtong didn't have time to ask what this man meant. She saw him push her hand away. Woman, I'll let you escape again this time. As Yi Qianxian spoke, he put a ring on Luo Qingtong's left ring finger. Ka. The moment the ring was put on Luo Qingtong's left ring finger, she felt a sharp pain. The ring was stuck on Luo Qingtong's finger. Hiss. Luo Qingtong hissed softly. Before she could reach out to touch the ring, Yi Qianxian's voice sounded. Don't waste your time. This ring has absorbed your essence blood. Without my essence blood as a guide, it will never fall off your finger. The man's voice was faint, but Luo Qingtong felt her teeth itch. She knew that this man wouldn't let her go so easily. But if you put a tracking device, then so be it. Why did you put a ring on it? And it just so happened to be on her left ring finger. Did he know what it meant to put a ring on her finger? Luo Qingtong felt depressed. But she didn't know how surprised Beiqing and Fengyu were when they saw Yi Qianxian put the ring on her finger. No, it couldn't be described as surprised. It should be described as horrified. 9 Phoenix Ring. Seeing the ring on Luo Qingtong's left ring finger, the two gasped in their hearts at the same time. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. 9 Phoenix Ring. That was the 9 Phoenix Ring that represented the future mistress of the house. Master gave it away just like that? Or did he give it to the evil doctor? The two of them panted heavily in their hearts. They didn't know what to say. Especially when they saw Luo Qingtong looking at the 9 Phoenix Ring with a look of disgust. As if she couldn't wait to pull it out. Their hearts were in a mess. The evil doctor doesn't know how precious this 9 Netherworld Phoenix Ring is. If this ring was taken out, who knew how many people would fight over it? How many people would die of envy and jealousy? This 9 Netherworld Phoenix Ring not only represented the supreme position of the future mistress, but also represented supreme authority. With this 9 Netherworld Phoenix Ring, the evil doctor's identity would be as honorable as his master. At the same time, all the forces under the master's name would be mobilized according to her wishes. Seeing her would be like seeing the master. How could the evil doctor look so disdainful towards such a ring? Beiqing and Fengyu's lips twitched violently. Luo Qingtong didn't notice their expressions. After discovering that the ring really couldn't be taken off, she gritted her teeth and said to Yi Qianxian, "Then I thank Lord for his reward." Don't think that she really had no other way. After she left, she would study it carefully. She must take off this damn ring. No need to thank me. Seeing this woman's deflated appearance, Yi Qianxian was in a good mood. At this moment, 9 Blades Killer made a move. Yi Qianxian's expression turned cold. He raised his hand and pushed Luo Qingtong away. "Woman, let's go." Chapter 235. Hey. Luo Qingtong was pushed back by his palm. Seeing the 9-blade assassin rush over, she hesitated for a moment. Finally, she clenched her teeth and shouted at Yi Qianxian, 3rd meridian from the lower left, 5th meridian from the 4th right rib, 8th front rib meridian. Don't go there. Change to the back 4 left 3, right 6. As she spoke, she tapped her foot and quickly leaped backwards following the force of Yi Qianxian's push. Luo Qingtong said that Yi Qianxian's meridian injuries were the 3 most serious. Those 3 meridians were the weakest and restricted Yi Qianxian's strength the most. Otherwise, this man's strength would be even stronger. The last 3 meridians that Luo Qingtong told Yi Qianxian were the energy circulation routes that she had specially modified for Yi Qianxian based on his meridian injuries. Generally, the energy circulation routes of cultivation methods were fixed and absolutely couldn't be changed easily. Otherwise, the best-case scenario would be a backlash of strength. In the worst-case scenario, one would suffer from qi deviation and lose their cultivation. Luo Qingtong didn't know if Yi Qianxian would believe her. But she had already done what she could. What she could do was up to that man himself. Boom! Seeing her figure leave, the 9-blade assassin's eyes suddenly burst with a strange color. Yi woman. With his Sheng realm cultivation base, he could naturally see that Luo Qingtong was a woman under her male disguise. If not, he wouldn't have deliberately targeted Luo Qingtong. She didn't expect that Yi Qianren would send this cross-dressing girl away, without any hesitation after just probing her a little. She must be very important to him. Targeting her would definitely make him reveal a flaw. Thinking of this, the 9-blade assassin fiercely brandished his weapon and rushed towards Yi Qianxian and the others. At the same time, he also fiercely attacked in the direction that Luo Qingtong left. Boom! Luo Qingtong was flying forward when she suddenly felt a surge of murderous intent behind her. The attack of a Saint Realm expert blotted out the sky. Its power was boundless. Luo Qingtong turned around and saw the ferocious attack behind her, which was shrouded in a layer of violent killing intent. Her face instantly tensed up. In an instant he activated his eye technique. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered violently. In the next second, she abruptly stopped in her tracks and threw herself into the nearby bushes. Rumble! Countless long grass and trees were all uprooted. Luo Qingtong's figure narrowly avoided the attack in that instant. She was sent rolling on the ground by the violent aftershock and disappeared in an instant. What? Seeing that Luo Qingtong had unexpectedly dodged his attack, the 9-blades assassin's face was instantly filled with astonishment and shock. Before he could figure out what was going on opposite him, Yi Qianxian's aura suddenly exploded with a boom. The aura around the man's body surged. His strength was much stronger than before. The aura around his body was like that of a demon god. How dare you attack her? You're courting death. Yi Qianxian's expression was ice-cold as he looked at the 9-blades assassin with an extremely cold gaze. When he heard Luo Qingtong's words just now, he subconsciously changed the route of his power according to her instructions. Because of this, he wasn't able to intercept the 9-blades assassin's attack on Luo Qingtong in time. He actually dared to attack that woman. Chapter 236. You. He looked at Yi Qianxian in bewilderment. The latter's strength was clearly not this strong before. What's going on? That's right. That girl just now. The 9-blade assassin suddenly recalled the words Luo Qingtong said before she left. Could it be that those words caused Yi Qianxian's strength to undergo such a huge change? But weren't those words just nonsense? How could anyone casually change the route of a cultivation technique? The 9-blade assassin had scoffed when he heard those words, thinking that it was a secret code between Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. But now that he saw the man's strength suddenly skyrocket, his face instantly stiffened. No one knew the meaning of those words better than him. That girl could actually casually change the route of a person's cultivation technique, without causing any backlash? What kind of terrifying ability was that? The most terrifying thing was the man in front of him. Looking at the man in front of him who was like a demon god, the Sage Realm 9-blade assassin suddenly felt a chill in his heart, and involuntarily took a step back. He felt a chill run down his spine. No one knew how powerful this man, who was known as a legend on the continent, was. If it weren't for the hidden dangers in his body that were rumored to have begun to lose his strength, They wouldn't have dared to accept the mission to hunt him down. But now, with that girl's words, his strength had suddenly skyrocketed. What did this mean? It meant that this man's strength had a chance to recover. This man, who was recognized as the uncrowned king of the continent, was an existence that all experts looked up to. No one knew how powerful he would be once his strength recovered and the hidden dangers in his body disappeared. That blow just now had made him vomit blood. And the strength that this man was displaying right now was not even 1/10 of his peak strength. If this man was at his peak, people like him wouldn't even have the qualifications to look up to him. No. This news must be sent back to the pavilion as soon as possible. Tell them that this man's strength might recover. Thinking of this, the nine-blade assassin almost subconsciously turned around and fled. Swish, swish, swish. A Sage Realm expert's ability to escape when fully unleashed could be said to be very shocking. However, Yi Qianxian only watched coldly as he fled. When the nine-blade assassin finally relaxed and thought that he was safe this time, the space around him instantly shattered into countless pieces with a boom. Countless space blades sliced apart the nine-blade assassin, and he was trapped in the shattered space, completely losing his sense of the world. The power of the Saint Realm was completely useless. That man! He looked in Yi Qianxian's direction in horror, only to see the man turn around with a cold gaze. I've cleaned it up. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. The moment his voice rang out, rumble. The nine-blades assassin was instantly pierced through by the sharp blade that shattered space, and his corpse fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. Yes, master. Bei Qing and Feng Yu hurriedly agreed. In front of Yi Qianxian, they had no chance to make a move. Of course, they wouldn't be able to deal with a Saint Realm expert, let alone a Saint Realm expert sent by the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. His strength was even above the ordinary Saint Realm. This woman ran really fast. Standing at the place where Luo Qingtong's figure disappeared, Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes slightly. The surroundings were filled with the violent power of the nine-blade assassin, which stirred up the power of heaven and earth, completely covering the woman's aura. That woman might have a way to completely avoid it, but she deliberately brushed past here, and ran away after being contaminated by the aura. Chapter 237. Master, aren't we going after the evil doctor? Bei Qing and Feng Yu, who had finished dealing with the corpses of the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, were shocked when they saw their master dashing in another direction. They hurriedly followed him. No hurry. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Let's go back first. The Supreme Assassin Pavilion's pursuit had really touched Yi Qianxian's bottom line. Especially that nine-blade assassin who dared to attack that woman. Thinking of the scene he had just seen, the man's blood-red eyes flashed with a cold light. If not for that woman's extraordinary ability, she would have been killed by that blow. How could an attack from a sage be so easy to dodge? That woman was the only one who could dodge it. If it had been anyone else, even if they were above the martial emperor level, but had not reached the sage level, they would have died. Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. In the past, he did not care about the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's pursuit. But now that the hidden danger in his body had appeared, there were too many people in the world who wanted to kill him. Supreme Assassin Pavilion was not the only one. As for Yi Qianren, she didn't put them in her eyes. Those assassinations that they had offered a reward for was just a joke to him. He had no intention of dealing with them. But it would be unforgivable if they hurt that woman. Yi Qianxian did not want to bring danger to that woman. Master, do you mean? Bei Qing and Feng Yu were stunned when they heard Yi Qianxian's words. Then they were delighted. Master, what he meant was, could it be that he wanted to go back? Going back to that place? Yes. You can go back to the Black Field and prepare. Yi Qianren faintly nodded, acknowledging their guesses. Yes. Master is wise. Master, you are finally going back. Haha. Let's see if those people still dare to be arrogant. Bei Qing and Feng Yu were pleasantly surprised. When they heard Yi Qianxian's voice, they hurriedly responded. Ha! Master is finally going back. Both of them were indescribably excited. For so many years, Master was too lazy to pay attention to that place, let alone step foot on that land. Every time they saw the news coming from the other side, they felt an indescribable anger in their hearts. What master's strength was about to completely disappear? The former king had been reduced to trash. Bah! You're the trash. Your whole family is trash. Their master was so strong. How could he have become trash? A bunch of clueless dregs. God knows what they're thinking about. Even if master's strength was 10 times weaker, he would still be able to beat them. A bunch of ignorant frogs at the bottom of a well. Beiqing and Fengyu were fuming with anger. But their master was too lazy to deal with them, so they had no way to fight back. Now it's all good. Master finally decided not to ignore it anymore. They could finally let out a sigh of relief. Beiqing rubbed her palms together as she thought about it. Fengyu, on the other hand, quickly regained her senses after a short moment of joy. She sighed inwardly at the influence the demonic doctor had on her master. As smart and calm as she was, she naturally knew that her master had always ignored the Supreme Assassin Pavilion's pursuit. She was too lazy to pay attention to those people, so why would she change her attitude so easily? It was most likely because she had almost implicated the demonic doctor in this dangerous situation. That was why her master was so angry that he decided to go back and deal with those ignorant people. Supreme Assassin Pavilion. This mysterious assassin organization that was said to be invincible in the true Spill continent, and dared to kill no one. She was afraid that bad luck was about to befall them. However, the direction in which her master was going didn't seem to be heading back to the Blackfield. Fengyu was puzzled. Chapter 238. Tianyu Empire, Imperial City. Emperor of Tianyu looked at the dead or injured imperial family members being carried back one by one. He was so angry that he was shaking. If it wasn't for his status, he would have jumped up on the spot and cursed. Even so, he still pointed at the people below and cursed. A bunch of trash. Didn't you say it was just a thief? So many people went to catch him. In the end, there were so many casualties. You've disgraced my Tianyu imperial family. How could Emperor of Tianyu not be angry? He was woken up in the middle of the night. He heard that someone broke into the imperial treasury and triggered the alarm. He thought it was nothing. It was just a thief. Once caught, he would kill him. More than half of the imperial city's experts were led around the city like dogs. When they chased the thief out of the palace, they came back with such a scene. They were all heavily injured and dead. They didn't even touch a hair on the thief. What use did he have for these people? Your Majesty, please don't be angry. The surviving imperial family members of Tianyu were also trembling in fear. They didn't expect that things would turn out like this after they rushed forward. That thief's accomplice was too strong. They were so angry that they didn't think too much when they rushed up. But when they fought with the thief, they realized that the thief's strength wasn't something they could compare to. Saying it was a fight was a nice way to put it. That was simply a one-sided suppression from the other side. They thought about how they had charged forward with so many people, only to be sent flying in just a few moves. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. And this was because the thief didn't want to fight and left quickly. If it wasn't for this, they suspected that the entire Tianyu Imperial City would have been slaughtered in one night. When they saw that person attack, they seriously suspected that the other party was a Saint Realm expert. But they couldn't say this to Emperor of Tianyu, because it was too ridiculous. Who would have thought that such a strong person would come and steal from their Tianyu Imperial treasury? Even if they gave the entire Tianyu Empire to him, he might not even look at it. The biggest possibility was that they were tricked by the thief who stole from the treasury. He had found the wrong target. If that was the case, then he couldn't say it out loud. If Emperor Tianyu knew about this, he would definitely behead them. That was a Saint Realm expert. Thus, the group of people kneeled on the ground trembling in fear. They were scolded by Emperor Tianyu until they did not even dare to fart. Just as Emperor of Tianyu was cursing, an expert from Tianyu's royal family rushed in. Because of his extreme panic and fear, he almost tripped when he entered the door. Your Majesty, something bad has happened. The expert from the royal family of Tianyu rushed up and knelt before the emperor of Tianyu. His forehead was dripping with sweat. Something big had happened. It was as if the sky had collapsed. The expert from Tianyu's imperial family knelt on the ground and kept swallowing his saliva. After a few gulps, he finally dared to tell Emperor Tianyu about this. Your Majesty, the treasury of the Tianyu royal family has been emptied. Bang! Chapter 239. What did you say? Emperor of Tianyu finally steadied himself with the help of his servants. He didn't care about his image as an emperor anymore and rushed to the expert, grabbing him by the collar and lifting him up. Say that again. Emperor Tianyu's expression was ferocious. His eyes filled with disbelief. The royal treasury had been emptied. How was that possible? That was impossible. That was the treasury of Tianyu's royal family for 1,000 years. All the treasures of Tianyu's royal family were in that treasury. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the treasury was the lifeline of Tianyu's royal family and Yuan clan. With that treasury, even if Tianyu's empire was destroyed, Yuan clan could rise again and return to the peak of the empire. But now they said that the treasury was gone? Had it been emptied? Nonsense. The treasury was full of traps and traps. There were also countless formations. Let's not talk about that. The treasury was thousands of square meters. How could such a big place be emptied out just like that? Veins popped out on Emperor of Tianyu's forehead. He didn't believe it at all. The reason why he was so calm when he heard that someone broke into the treasury was because he knew that the intruder wouldn't lose anything. What could a mere thief steal? It would be amazing if he could sneak in. But now, the content of this expert's report was a heavy blow to him. Your Majesty, it's true. The expert from Tianyu's royal family cried as he kowtowed with all his might. Not just the outer treasury, the inner treasury's countless treasures, resources, and pills are all gone. Our royal family's 1,000 years of treasures are all gone. Your Majesty, the expert from Tianyu's royal family cried out. They were also shocked when they rushed into the treasury. Who would have thought that a mere thief could empty their royal family's 1,000 years of treasures? No one knew how the thief did it. When they entered, the entire royal treasury was shiny and clean. It was so clean that they almost blinded their eyes. On the spot, a few of the martial emperors fainted. He still hasn't woken up yet. Impossible. This is impossible. Tianyu Emperor loosened his grip and kicked the expert to the side before running towards the treasury. Your Majesty! A group of people yelled and followed behind him. Emperor Tianyu rushed to the royal treasury with a ferocious expression and rushed into the huge treasury. When he saw the empty treasury hall, Emperor Tianyu trembled, just like the fallen leaves in the autumn wind. In the next second, he screamed out in pain and fell straight to the ground. Your Majesty! A group of experts from Tianyu's royal family hurried over. Some of them were supporting him while others were pinching his philtrum. It took a long time before Emperor Tianyu woke up. Pooh. The moment he woke up, even someone as calm as Emperor Tianyu spat out a mouthful of blood. Investigate. He screamed hysterically. Chapter 240. Sky Mirror Secret Technique was a secret technique unique to Tianyu's royal family. This secret technique, combined with the royal family's own inherited cultivation method, could allow one to track the other party's identity through a trace of aura. This was a secret of Tianyu's royal family. Very few people knew about it. At the same time, it was rarely used. Because it consumed too much energy, only martial emperors could use it. Most of the Tianyu royal family's martial emperors were in seclusion in order to break through. They couldn't be disturbed. Under normal circumstances, Emperor Tianyu wouldn't use this method, nor would he alert the martial emperors of Tianyu's royal family. But this time it wasn't normal. What was lost was the royal treasury of Tianyu's royal family. Their royal family's 1,000 years of treasures. It was their lifeline to rise again in the future. 1,000 years of building a country, 1,000 years of treasures. The loss of the royal treasury was a heart-wrenching pain to Tianyu's royal family. Not only that, didn't they need to find all their treasures? Did they have to spend another 1,000 years to find all their treasures? Who knew if Tianyu Empire would still be around by then? No. They had to find the treasury. That little thief must also be caught. Emperor Tianyu spat out blood as he ordered. Soon, the martial emperors of Tianyu's royal family were alerted. Your Majesty, don't worry. We'll use Sky Mirror secret technique immediately. That thief won't be able to escape. Hearing that the royal treasury was stolen, the martial emperors of Tianyu's royal family were very cautious. At the same time, they were furious. Swoosh. In the treasury, a martial emperor stood in front of the door that was destroyed by a punch. He raised his hand and grabbed in the air. Instantly, the air currents in the room surged. Countless auras stirred in the air. In the next second, the martial emperor clenched his hand. A trace of aura was grasped in his hand. Activate secret technique. Seeing his action, the other martial emperors of Tianyu's royal family raised their hands and slapped out a rune in the air. Those runes flew into the air and connected to each other, forming a mirror-like formation. Sky Mirror secret technique. Whoosh. The martial emperor-level powerhouse raised his hand. In an instant, the wisp of aura left his hand and swept into the center of the heavenly mirror secret skill. The martial emperors from the royal family of Tianyu were red in the face. Their chi was being sucked into the formation. The ripples of the water mirror kept spinning. A faintly discernible silhouette appeared from within. It was a red figure standing in front of the door of the secret room and punching out. That's right. That little thief is wearing a red coat. One of the imperial family's experts beside Emperor Tianyu shouted when he saw the faint red figure. They were led around Sky Universe Imperial City by Luo Qingtong, and had a deep impression of this red dress. However, it was nighttime, and the thief's face was covered by a cloth, so it was impossible to see his face clearly. Now, under the heavenly mirror secret technique, let's see how that little thief can hide his appearance. When they catch that little thief, they will skin him alive and make him suffer a fate worse than death. Emperor Tianyu gritted his teeth as he stared at the figure of the young man slowly appearing from the heavenly mirror secret technique. Chapter 241. Rumble. That loud sound seemed to have come from the horizon. It was like a thunderclap, rumbling in the air. In an instant, it was above the royal treasury. Bang! Before Emperor Tianyu and the others could react to what was going on, with a boom, the entire roof of the royal treasury exploded in an instant. An incomparably majestic force came crashing down. In an instant, countless bricks and mud flew everywhere. Emperor Tianyu and the rest were instantly sent flying. The martial emperors who were using the Sky Mirror secret technique to reveal Luo Qingtong's appearance spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground with a thud. They were instantly heavily injured. Sage Realm Expert. A martial emperor-level expert, who was slightly injured, stared in shock at the vast force that had instantly sent the entire royal treasury flying. His eyes instantly widened as he cried out hysterically, "Sage Realm Expert!" Such a terrifying heaven and earth energy could only be possessed by an expert who had reached the Saint Realm and had transcended the mortal world. These powerhouses who had already cultivated to the martial emperor realm were well aware of the vastness of the power of heaven and earth. At the same time, they were filled with respect and fear towards the expert who did this. Sage Realm Expert. And not just any ordinary Sage Realm Expert. So strong. This wave of energy came directly from afar and blew up the entire royal treasury, but they didn't notice it at all. What kind of terrifying control was this? Just as the martial emperors of Tianyu's royal family were in shock and fear, a cold voice suddenly rang in their ears. You are not allowed to investigate the royal treasury. Otherwise, you will be killed. The two words killed were incomparably cold and ruthless, filled with killing intent. Everyone couldn't help but shudder when they heard it. Terrifying. It was really too terrifying. The royal family of Tianyu didn't doubt that if they said no, the entire royal family of Tianyu would be wiped out in an instant. This person's strength was simply too strong. Emperor Tianyu and the rest trembled. Under the pressure of this force, they couldn't even say a word. They could only nod their heads desperately. Compared to his life and the continuation of Tianyu's royal family, the royal treasury was nothing. Even if the other party asked them to hand over the entire Tianyu Empire, they could only offer it with both hands respectfully. This kind of power was enough to pierce through the heavens and earth. Only the 4 great sacred dynasties had such an expert. Although the Tianyu Empire was an emperor-level superpower in the outside world, in front of the 4 holy dynasties, it wasn't even worth mentioning. Not to mention such an expert. However, Emperor Tianyu and the others couldn't figure out why such an expert would be interested in the imperial treasury of the Tianyu Empire. With the other party's strength, what kind of treasure could he not have? However, there were many eccentricities in this world. Perhaps they had met an expert who liked to snatch other people's treasures? Thinking like this, Emperor Tianyu and the others could only accept their bad luck. While Emperor Tianyu and the others were scared out of their wits, on a mountain peak not far from Emperor Tianyu, Yi Qianxian flicked his sleeve and withdrew his power. "Let's go," he said indifferently. "Yes, master." Beiqing and Fengyu hurriedly responded. They didn't expect that master would take a detour to Tianyu Empire, just to cover the evil doctor's aura. Master cared too much about the evil doctor, didn't he? They didn't know if the evil doctor could sense master's good intentions. Achoo! Achoo! Chapter 242. Strange, who's scolding me? Luo Qingtong stopped and rubbed her nose. Then she thought of something and her lips twitched. It can't be that man, right? Thinking of Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong had a headache. Why is that man so difficult to deal with? He's still haunting me. Luo Qingtong never imagined that she would run into that evildoer when she suddenly wanted to go to the Tianyu Empire to teach the Tianyu Empire's imperial family a lesson. What kind of ill-fated fate did she have to run into that man again and again? I'm drunk. God, how did I offend you? Tell me. I'll change. As long as you don't let that man run into me again. If you want me to call you master, I'll even offer you longevity incense every day. Sigh. I'm so unlucky. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have come to the Tianyu Empire. Anyway, she would have plenty of chances to teach the Tianyu Empire's imperial family a lesson. Why did she have to come when that man was here? That was great. Not only was she caught, but she was also trapped with such a thing. Luo Qingtong gloomily looked at the ring finger of her left hand. There, a ring of exquisite craftsmanship was quietly being worn on her slender and beautiful finger. The 9 phoenixes on the ring were so beautiful and lifelike, as if they would spread their wings and fly out at any time. Luo Qingtong looked at the workmanship of the ring. It was even better than the trash that little pig gave her. After all, the trash that little pig took out was made by that old man, Tian Mingzi. As the owner of the Immortal Slayer Palace, the storage rings that he refined were definitely not ordinary. Even if they were trash, they would definitely be of high quality. The ring that this man put on her finger was not inferior to his. It could be seen that this ring's quality was not low either. Really? It's just a tracking device. Why did he make it so flashy? If I didn't know better, I would think that he's interested in me. And he even put it in such a place. If she didn't know that the ancient people didn't know that putting a ring in such a place represented a proposal, Luo Qingtong would have misunderstood. But, what was the meaning of the kiss she gave him at the end? Luo Qingtong was almost intoxicated by it. Not only was that man powerful and handsome, but he was also a fast learner. The taste of that kiss was simply too good. Luo Qingtong was almost tempted by such a man. In fact, Luo Qingtong really liked Yi Qianxian. Such a strong and handsome man was really her cup of tea. Luo Qingtong had seen countless handsome men in the 24th century, but she was not interested in men who were weaker than her. Moreover, she was the strongest ocular sorcerer in the special ability realm. Who knew how many people were after her? If a man who was too weak stayed by her side, it would only become a weakness for others to capture and plot against her. Therefore, no matter how much Luo Qingtong admired men, she had never been moved by any man. She was very clear about what she wanted, and she knew that she would never become someone's puppet or vassal. But Yi Qianxian, that man, He was too strong. He was so strong that Luo Qingtong didn't know where his limit was, and she didn't know how she could control him. After so many years of being on the run, Luo Qingtong had developed an extremely insecure character. A man that she couldn't control was as dangerous as a ticking time bomb. Luo Qingtong didn't know when she would be blown to pieces. Once she fell in love with such a man, she would be consigned to eternal damnation. Forget it, it's better to stay away from him. Chapter 243. Come out. Luo Qingtong automatically gave Little Pig a name. She didn't care if the name didn't match its high and mighty identity as an ancient divine pig. In fact, Luo Qingtong suspected that this pig was fooling her. Looking at it, it didn't have the slightest demeanor of an ancient divine beast. What are you doing? Little Pig crawled out of her sleeve with weak legs. However, before it could crawl out, Luo Qingtong lifted it up. Do you have a way to block the detection of this ring and prevent that man from sensing it? Luo Qingtong firmly believed that this ring was a tracking device. In fact, this ring could indeed sense Yi Qianxian's Shifeng dragon ring. After all, the Dragon Phoenix Emperor rings were a pair. Otherwise, how could Yi Qianxian let Luo Qingtong go so easily? There's no way. This ring has already absorbed your blood essence. If I'm not wrong, that man should have a ring similar to yours. It can sense your aura. Little Pig had stayed in the Immortal Slayer Palace for a long time. Naturally, it knew some things about refining. This ring's level was obviously very high. If it was a little lower, it might have a way. But now it could only shake its head. Is there really no way at all? Luo Qingtong furrowed her brows. She really didn't want to meet that man again. The feeling of not being able to control her own body and being held in the palm of someone else's hand wasn't pleasant at all. As a supreme ocular technique master, Luo Qingtong had never felt so helpless before. But that man, she had no way to deal with him. Most importantly, Luo Qingtong was afraid that if this continued, she would really be tempted. Yi Qianxian was very suitable for her to choose a partner in all aspects. The feeling of not being able to pounce on the man she liked was too vexing. No, she must stay away from that man. Otherwise, what if she accidentally made a big mistake? If it was back on Earth, she would just pounce on such a man. Anyway, she was alone in this world. She wasn't afraid of his revenge. At most, he would just run away. But now, thinking of grandfather Luo Qingtong had scruples in her heart. It was rare for her to have someone she wanted to protect, so she didn't want to lose them again. That man was too dangerous, she couldn't take the risk. He couldn't pin his hopes on the possibility that he would show mercy to him. Who knew if he had changed his mind on the spur of the moment? Thinking about it, Luo Qingtong stared at the ring on her hand. Her eyes flashed with a bloody light. She wanted to use her eye technique to analyze the ring and find a way to take it off. But just as her ocular technique was activated, it hit a wall. Luo Qingtong looked at the layer of power lingering around the ring in annoyance. It was the layer of power that the man had placed on it. She couldn't pry into the ring and analyze it. Just like how she couldn't see the man's face clearly before. The heavens wanted her dead. Luo Qingtong scratched the wall in her heart. That man even knew that she had an eye technique. Was there a need to be so cautious? She glared at the ring on her hand. She was so angry. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have exposed so much to save that man. But in the end, he returned it all to her. What kind of sin did she commit to sacrifice herself for others? In the end, she ended up trapping herself. On the other hand, Little Pig couldn't help but ask when he saw her trying to find a way to take off the 9 Phoenix ring. I don't think that man has any bad intentions towards you. Why do you have to avoid him? That man even warned him for this woman. Not only that, the ring's level looked so high. It didn't look like it would harm this woman. Chapter 244. You don't understand. Luo Qingtong didn't even raise her head as she continued to study the 9 Phoenix ring on her finger. A tiger cub and a wolf king met and was spared. Do you think you'll be so lucky the next time you meet? Moreover, A person's fate should be in their own hands and not in the hands of others. I want to be a hunter, but I don't want to be someone else's prey, especially the prey of an uncontrollable man. As Luo Qingtong spoke, a faint light flashed through her eyes. Luo Qingtong knew very well how important a stable growth period was to a strong person. She had grown from nothing to a world-renowned supreme ocular sorcerer. Before she matured, she didn't want to meet that dangerous man for the time being. As for after she matured, it would be her turn to hunt him down. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's lips curled into a wicked smile. I didn't expect you to have such thoughts. Little Pig looked at Luo Qingtong in amazement. This woman is different from the rest. That man is so strong, yet she doesn't have any thoughts of attaching herself to him. But what about being a hunter and a prey? Did she misunderstand something? Little Pig thought about the scene between Yi Qianxian and Luo Qingtong. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't look like a hunter versus a prey. Moreover, is there a prey as arrogant as this woman? Little Pig felt very complicated. Before he could speak, Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly sounded. Wait, what did you just say? I didn't expect a woman like you to have such thoughts. Little Pig repeated with a baffled expression. What is this woman up to now? Not this. That was the first sentence. You said that this ring absorbed my essence blood, so that man could sense my aura through another ring that was similar to it? That's right. Little Pig was even more baffled now. What's wrong? Is there a problem with my words? There's no problem. Very good. Very good. Luo Qingtong smiled sweetly and recklessly. It was indescribably enchanting. You've helped me a lot. She knew how to deal with that man. She hoped that man wouldn't be too surprised when he found her. Come here. Luo Qingtong hooked her finger at Little Pig. The latter squatted on her shoulder and looked at her smiling face. She felt a chill run down her spine. She subconsciously wanted to run away, but Luo Qingtong grabbed her tail and pulled her back. All right, I won't do anything to you. Give me a few more of your junk. What do you want now? Whenever Little Pig saw Luo Qingtong smile, he knew something was wrong. He felt that this woman was up to something again. You don't have to worry about that. Just take it out. Luo Qingtong grabbed Little Pig and shook him violently. Little Pig felt dizzy from her shaking and quickly took out a few scraps. The corner of Little Pig's mouth twitched when he saw Luo Qingtong holding Tian Mingzi's ruined storage ring. She pricked her finger and dripped her blood on it. You can't be thinking that these scraps will resonate with that man's ring after you drip your blood on them, right? Is there something wrong with this woman's brain? Even if these scraps were smeared with her blood, they wouldn't be the ring on her finger. The fluctuation of spiritual energy on them is different. How can they resonate with that man's ring? Chapter 245. You. Little Pig's beady eyes widened as he watched Luo Qingtong's actions. The young girl held the trash in one hand and covered the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring with her other hand. Little Pig didn't know what she did, but in an instant the spiritual energy fluctuation on the trash changed. It changed. It became exactly the same as the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring. Holy **T. Little Pig was shocked. He stomped his forehooves and jumped in front of Luo Qingtong in an instant. He raised his front hooves and grabbed at the trash. After Luo Qingtong finished transforming the trash, she let go of her hand and let Little Pig grab it. You. Woman, how did you do it? Little Pig probed the trash with his spiritual energy and found that it was still the same trash. However, the spiritual energy fluctuation on it had changed into the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring. Holy **T. This woman is simply godly. She can do this. How did she do it? No matter if it was a spiritual tool or an elixir, they all had their own unique spiritual energy fluctuation. This was determined by the formula they used to refine them. It was just like a cultivator's own spiritual energy fluctuation. It couldn't be changed. However, Luo Qingtong forcibly changed the spiritual energy fluctuation on this trash. It was as if a cultivator who cultivated a fire attribute cultivation method had the aura of ice attribute. It was so unbelievable. Little Pig felt that ever since he recognized Luo Qingtong as his master, he had been suffering from inhumane blows every moment. Is this woman still human? Is there anyone as abnormal as her? It's just a little trick, Luo Qingtong said as she quickly changed the spiritual energy fluctuation on the other trash. This kind of spiritual energy fluctuation was directly changed by her according to the aura fluctuation on the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring. The spiritual energy fluctuation was naturally emitted. That man's strength couldn't block it. Luo Qingtong used her pupil technique to record it. Then he followed the instructions and made some changes to those useless rings. Didn't that man put a tracker on me? I can't take it off, right? He won't let me use my pupil technique to decipher it, right? Let's see how he can find me after I make a few more. In addition to changing the spiritual energy fluctuation on the trash, Luo Qingtong also picked a trash and covered it with the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring in her hand. This way it would be foolproof. She didn't believe that man could still find her after changing the fake and the real one. If that really happened, she could only admit that she was unlucky. God wanted him to find her. What could she do? You're awesome. You're awesome. Little Pig was speechless after hearing her words. Does this woman know how shocking what she's doing right now? No one could change the spirit chi inside a spirit artifact like she could. That was equivalent to one person suddenly transforming into another person. This was something that not even a weapon refining grandmaster could do. What kind of woman is this woman? I'm Luo Qingtong quickly changed the spirit energy fluctuations of the few useless rings. She tossed the fake 9 Nether Phoenix rings in her hand and stood up. Go. Let's go. While we're at it. Along the way, let's give that man some surprises. Luo Qingtong said with her lips slightly curled up. She had an indescribably evil and wanton aura. Just as she began to modify the waste products on the Atlas spirit vessel, Yi Qianren suddenly sensed the aura of the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring. He didn't expect that the Sage Realm aura around that woman would fade away so quickly. Just as Yi Qianren was thinking about whether or not he should go back and capture that woman, suddenly, with a few schwa 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 sounds, a few identical auras appeared in his senses. That woman. Chapter 246. Pa. On the Atlas flying ship, Beiqing and Fengyu had yet to react to Yi Qianxian's change in aura. In an instant, they saw their master break the armrest of the throne. That woman. Why can't she be more obedient? Yi Qianxian was really furious. That woman was like a runaway horse the moment he let go of her. She ran off without a trace in an instant. Even the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring couldn't trap her. Could she be any more powerful? This was Yi Qianxian's first time meeting a woman like Luo Qingtong. She clearly said that she admired him and liked him. In the end, he gave her a chance to get close to him, and was willing to let her stay by his side. However, she ran away faster than a rabbit. That was fine. If she ran away, then so be it. He could just catch her again. However, this woman was as slippery as a loach. She ran away no matter how he caught her. There were hundreds of thousands of ways to escape, and she used all kinds of tricks to escape. In order to escape, she didn't even care about her dignity. Yi Qianxian had really never met such a treacherous, cunning, evil, and unbridled woman. In the past, which woman didn't pounce on him the moment they saw him? However, this woman avoided him like the plague. However, in addition to his anger, Yi Qianxian also felt a faint sense of pride in his heart. The feeling of meeting his match and the woman he fancied wasn't as simple as he imagined caused the anger in his heart to dissipate slightly. Let's see how long you can run away for. That woman had many tricks up her sleeves, which meant that she wouldn't get into trouble easily. Thinking of this, Yi Qianxian felt a lot more comfortable. As for her escape, he would settle the score with her after he returned and got the 10-directional dragon ring. Right now, the 10-directional dragon ring wasn't with him, so its senses weren't so accurate. Moreover, it was time to teach those people a lesson. Thinking that if it weren't for the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, he might not have let that woman go, Yi Qianxian's eyes turned cold. Master? Seeing Yi Qianxian stand up, The aura around him fluctuated a few times before finally returning to normal. Beiqing and Fengyu immediately mustered up their courage and asked, "Oh my God, what did the evil doctor do? Why was Master so angry? But didn't Master put the 9 phoenix ring on the evil doctor? That was a pair with her master's Shifeng dragon ring. Logically speaking, the evil doctor would not be able to escape. Could it be that the heretic physician was so powerful that he could even block the dragon phoenix imperial ring's senses? How could this be? This was absolutely impossible. Others might not know the origin of the dragon phoenix emperor ring, but Beiqing Fengyu knew it very well. Therefore, she refused to believe it. But what his master had just said clearly meant that the evil doctor had escaped his control again. Every time the evil doctor ran away, Master would be so angry. Why is the evil doctor so good at running? Beiqing and Fengyu's lips twitched. They really didn't know how to evaluate Luo Qingtang. She was really the most demonic and abnormal woman they had ever seen. In this world, only their master could be compared to her. It's fine. Yi Qianxian's anger had almost subsided by now. He would let that woman run away for a while longer. When he came back, he would see where she could escape to. Tell the Black Field to speed up the search of the portraits I gave you. Regardless of whether you are a man or a woman, report it immediately. The man said in a low voice. Yes, master. Hearing this, Beiqing and Fengyu immediately knew that the evil doctor had really run away. But why was their master not angry anymore? Both of them felt incredulous, but they didn't dare to ask. Ever since they met the evil doctor, their master's thoughts had become more and more unpredictable. Now they couldn't even guess. Chapter 247. Why do you think that woman keeps running away? The man's voice was cold, without a trace of anger. I'm willing to let her stay by my side. I don't think she's weak, and I'm willing to protect her. Why does she keep running away? He had great power and was very powerful, but he had never liked any woman. He didn't know how it felt to like someone. But he was willing to protect that woman. He didn't want to kill her no matter how much she disobeyed him. Yi Qianxian thought that he should like that woman. But he was willing to give in for that woman. He didn't care about how she had offended him in the past. Why does she keep trying to run away? She was like a mouse that had seen a cat. Beiqing and Fengyu were stunned by his question. Fengyu was still okay. She recovered after a while. Beiqing, who was a simple-minded person, was still looking at her master. She couldn't wrap her head around it for a long time. Oh my God! Is this really my master? Is this really my master, who is cold, heartless and dignified? Beiqing looked at her master, who had never cared about anything and was always cold and murderous. He was like a god in the 9th heaven. He was untouchable. Now, he was frowning and questioning her with a trace of doubt in his eyes. Beiqing almost pinched his own thigh to see if he was dreaming. Oh my God! This is too unreal. Maybe his shock was too obvious, or maybe his attitude made Yi Qianxian very unhappy. The man's cold eyes swept over him coldly. I'm asking you a question. What? Oh! Beiqing suddenly quivered when his master's cold eyes swept over him. He quickly came back to his senses. Actually, that master, I think, maybe the evil doctor. She doesn't know what you're thinking. Beiqing, whose nerves were thicker than his brain, had a strong sense of crisis for the first time when he saw his master's dark expression. He answered carefully while looking at his master's face. He was afraid that if he said the wrong thing, he would be swept away by his master's sleeve. Impossible. Yi Qianxian frowned. I told her my name and even allowed her to drink with me at the same table. Not only that, I even let her touch me. Anyone who touched him without permission was already dead. That woman was the only exception. I've shown mercy again and again, and even gave you the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring. Isn't that enough to show my intentions? Yi Qianxian frowned and looked at Beiqing with displeasure. If this didn't count as telling that woman his thoughts, then what did? No. Master. Beiqing was frightened by her master's stare. How was he going to explain this to his master? The demonic doctor probably didn't know that this meant that he liked her. thinking about how his master had been trying to catch the evil doctor ever since he came back from the Nine Magi Mountain. Anyone would think that his master was seeking revenge. Moreover, these people knew that the master said these things for the sake of the evil doctor, but she probably didn't know about the evil doctor. She didn't know his master. Just as Bei Qing was about to cry, Feng Yu spoke up and rescued him from the abyss of suffering. Cough. Master, I'm afraid that the evil doctor doesn't know that you treat her differently. You didn't tell her that you like her, right? What she was trying to say was, Master, did you not confess to her? Chapter 248. Indeed, he didn't tell that woman that he liked her. But couldn't that woman see for herself? Moreover, he was a dignified underworld lord. How could he talk about such matters of love? Moreover, he liked her? It was clearly that woman who liked him first. That was why he gave her a chance. Yi Qianxian was very uneasy. He remained silent with a cold face. Feng Yu, on the other hand, knew that he had guessed correctly when he saw his master's reaction. Cough. Master, the demonic doctor's temperament is very different from others. I'm afraid she doesn't want her life to be controlled by others. You didn't express your feelings before. In the demonic doctor's eyes, I'm afraid you want to capture her for revenge. It's understandable that you want to escape. He advised tactfully. His master's thinking was too simple. He had tried every possible means to capture the demonic doctor. Now that he had changed his mind, the demonic doctor didn't know. She had angered his master again and again. Of course she wanted to escape. As for the 9 Phoenix ring, Feng Yu was very suspicious that Luo Qingtong might have used it as a means for Yi Qianxian to capture her. That's why she tried her best to escape. Her master had been wrongly blamed for this. It had to be said that Feng Yu had guessed the truth to a certain extent. Yi Qianxian snorted coldly and didn't say anything. However, he felt much better knowing that the woman wasn't deliberately avoiding him. Let's go. He closed his eyes and didn't say anything else. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others didn't dare to disturb his rest. They dutifully guarded him. At the same time, Luo Qingtong was also rushing towards Dongli Kingdom. Along the way, she deliberately took some detours and spread the waste products that she had modified in her hands. In those places, there were brothels, restaurants, rich families, and commoners. Luo Qingtong didn't forget to mischievously throw a few of them in places with strong smells. Especially those brothels and taverns. Imagining the expression that man would have when he found her, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh. After doing all this, she took Little Pig with her and prepared to dispose of the things in Tianyu's royal treasury. That was not a good thing. On the contrary, it was very troublesome. Tianyu's royal family's 1,000-year heritage wasn't something that could be taken so easily. Even though Luo Qingtong had gotten it, she still had to be wary of the royal family of Tianyu having any means to trace it back to her. The best way was to get rid of these things and replace them with other treasures. This way, not only would she benefit from it, she would also be able to shift the blame of the Tianyu royal family's treasury. As for the best place to handle the treasures, of course, it was the Black Field. Knowing that the man would not be able to find her so quickly, Luo Qingtong threw the fake 9 Netherworld Phoenix rings all over the place. Then she disguised herself and entered the Black Region subcity of an intermediate country on the way as the evil doctor. Anyway, that man already knew that she was the evil doctor. Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid that he would catch her. After all, the other Blackfield players didn't know about it yet. By the time they reported the news of his appearance to that man, he would have already escaped. Luo Qingtong was confident that the people of the Blackfield wouldn't be able to stop her. Naturally, she didn't have any reservations. Of course, the most important thing was that she had stolen a huge amount of treasures from Tianyu's royal treasury. Only her identity as an evil doctor could keep them in check. The theft of Tianyu's royal treasury was an important matter. She could hide it from others, but not the people of the Blackfield. Luo Qingtong didn't want to be sold out as a gift to curry favor with Tianyu's royal family. With the treasures in the Tianyu treasury, the Luo clan would be able to grow rapidly. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong turned around and walked out of the Blackfield city. She had just entered the city and didn't have time to alert the people in the Blackfield city. Therefore, she left without any burden. However, not long after she left, several figures suddenly appeared not far from where she was. Notify the pavilion that the target has appeared. One of them said in a deep voice. Immediately, someone responded in a deep voice and left. Let's go. Let's follow her. Those people followed in the direction Luo Qingtong left. Chapter 250. There's someone behind us. Little Pig also noticed the rat behind them. MHM. Luo Qingtong responded in a low voice. Naturally, she also noticed it. Interesting. She had just entered the city and left after hearing some gossip. From beginning to end, she didn't even disturb the people of the Blackfield city. However, these people followed her. Obviously, they had been waiting for her for a long time. She chose to enter the Blackfield city on a whim. In other words, there were probably people like this waiting for her in every Blackfield city. Apart from that man's forces, there were actually other forces that were so powerful? Interesting. Let's go. Don't worry about them. She wanted to see who was the one who was plotting against her behind her back. Luo Qingtong pretended not to know about the existence of these people from beginning to end. She and Little Pig left the Blackfield city without removing their disguises, and directly checked into an inn in a nearby city. Book a side courtyard. Luo Qingtong directly booked a side courtyard behind the inn. The manager of the inn looked at the large sum of money that Luo Qingtong gave him, and smiled so widely that his eyes could not be seen. He immediately agreed. Guest, do you have any other orders? He asked with a cheerful face. Orders. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and rubbed her smooth chin under the Rakshasa mask. Her lips curved into a mysterious arc. You don't have to send people to ask about me after nightfall. I have a bad temper. If I'm disturbed, someone will have a bloody disaster. Oh right, you can keep the extra room money. Just treat it as compensation. What she said was very meaningful. After saying that, she turned around and left. Ha! What compensation? The shopkeeper was puzzled when he heard this. However, it was rare to meet a guest who was so generous and didn't need any special service. The innkeeper was very happy and didn't think about it anymore. In the distance, he saw Luo Qingtong had already checked into the inn. The people who followed her immediately retreated quietly. Let's go. Let's go back and have a good sleep. We'll wait for tonight's guest. Luo Qingtong clearly saw these people retreating secretly. She leaned against the wall of the courtyard and stroked Little Pig's fluffy fur with one hand. She smiled wickedly and wantonly. That smile faintly carried the smell of blood. She jumped down from the wall and returned to her room with Little Pig. One person and one pig, incomparably carefree, closed the door and went to sleep. Nightfall. The moon was bright, and the sky hung low. Tens of thousands of stars flickered with light, illuminating the land in a snow-white glow. Streaks of blood-red figures appeared in the surroundings of Luo Qingtong's rented house silently. Rays of snow-white light shone from the weapons in their hands. Bang! They jumped into the courtyard, and were about to approach the main building of the courtyard and break into it. The next second, boom! A formation suddenly rose around the courtyard, enveloping the entire courtyard in an instant. Amidst the faint silver light of the formation, the door to the main room opened. Luo Qingtong, dressed in red and wearing a Rakshasa mask, strode out from inside. I've been waiting for you for a long time. You've already eaten your supper. Aren't you a bit too late? Her neat male attire accentuated the youth's slender waist. Her devilish appearance revealed a peerlessly enchanting charm. Her clear voice coupled with the Rakshasa mask on her face made her look like a soul-reaping emissary from purgatory. Chapter 251. Demonic Physician Ghost Eye. Seeing the demonic youth walk out of the room, the people who had barged into the courtyard were all shocked. They looked at the silver array surrounding the courtyard, and looked at Luo Qingtong in disbelief. You're actually a spiritual array master? Damn it. Why didn't the intelligence report mention this? Spiritual array masters were as valuable as alchemists. Ordinary people already expended a lot of energy to cultivate. Luo Qingtong's medical skills were extraordinary, but she was also a spiritual array master? Furthermore, this array, the leader of the group glanced at the formation that was closing in on them like a turtle in a jar. His eyes flashed with shock. This array, from inside to outside, was flawless. Even with his strength, he couldn't see any flaws. How strong was the opponent's array? It's just a small trick, not worth mentioning. But it's more than enough to deal with you. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and flicked her sleeve. Her eyes were bloodshot as she looked at the group of uninvited guests. With her ability to set up formations, none of the people inside would be able to escape. Tell me, who asked the Supreme Assassin Pavilion to deal with me, and I'll leave you with an intact corpse. She said casually. The opponent's attire was exactly the same as the group of assassins who had attacked Yi Qianxian. The only difference was their strength and the blood blade pattern on their chests. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Someone actually asked the Supreme Assassin Pavilion to deal with her. Interesting. Luo Qingtong felt that her identity as the demonic physician hadn't offended many people. She didn't know who had spent so much money to invite the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. They really thought highly of her. Not to mention that a martial emperor realm expert was involved in the battle. It seemed that the opponent knew a lot about her. Shameless boasting. They couldn't see through the layout of the array, but as long as they killed Luo Qingtong, the array would break. The leading martial king expert waved his hand, and the group charged at Luo Qingtong. 1 inferior grade martial king, and 8 upper grade martial marquises. Looking at this lineup, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. You stay here and watch. After shaking Little Pig to the ground, Luo Qingtong instructed. In the next second, she attacked with the life and death yin-yang sword. Shua! The death blade changed. The pure black sword light was like a waterfall, drawing a cold and beautiful light in the air. Like the reaping light of the Grim Reaper in the dark night, it suddenly attacked. Sword light! Seeing the fierce sword light coming from Luo Qingtong's hand, the group of Supreme Assassin Pavilion's assassins instantly widened their eyes. Before they could react, a blood-curdling scream rang out. In an instant, an upper-grade martial marquis was killed. The sword radiance came out of her body. Luo Qingtong's figure was like the wind, and instantly swept over the entire courtyard. Quick! Retreat! That middle-grade martial king assassin only had time to shout this one sentence before a series of plop 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 sounds came from all around him. In just a few breaths, the 8 upper-grade martial marquises were all killed. In the huge courtyard, only the leading lower-grade martial king expert was left. He looked at all of this with a shocked and dazed expression. You. He looked at the blood-red youth in front of him with shock. He only felt that the other party's red clothes were soul-stirring, like a demonic ghost in purgatory that took people's lives. Chapter 252. The opponent's strength was clearly only in the martial general realm. She was actually able to release a sword light that only martial kings could release. She could easily kill a martial lord. How did she do it? Even if the sword in her hand was extraordinary, how did her strength support the release of sword light? The strength of a martial general was simply not enough to release sword light. This martial king realm cultivator did not know that although Luo Qingtong's power was at the martial general realm, she had gone through the life and death yin-yang sword and 9-story exquisite pagoda. Her physique had already reached the level of a martial king realm cultivator. The strength in her body was endless. Although her strength was only in the martial general realm, and was slightly weaker, it was enough for her to release sword light and kill these martial lord experts. You don't need to know this. I'll give you another chance. Who asked your Supreme Assassin Pavilion to kill me? Lifting her hand to shake off the dark red blood on the death blade, Luo Qingtong held the dark black sword horizontally with one hand. Her cheeks were slightly tilted, and the sinister Rakshasa mask on her face looked indifferently at the martial king expert. Humph. Don't even think about it. Don't think that just because you can release sword light, you're really a martial king. The martial king expert was depressed and angry in his heart. After a short period of shock, he quickly recovered and realized that he was actually scared by a martial general. This evil Dr. Guetong's methods were truly strange. However, if she thought that this would be enough to scare him, then she was gravely mistaken. Although he was shocked that Luo Qingtong could easily kill the 8 martial lord experts who came with him. However, there was a huge difference between a martial king and a martial lord. These 8 martial lord experts were only brought by him to guard against Luo Qingtong. If they died, then they died. As long as he brought back the target's head, this mission would still be a success. Thinking of this, the martial king expert raised his hand and attacked Luo Qingtong. Seeing him rushing towards her, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. With a snap, the death blade in her hand turned into a life blade in an instant. Boom boom boom. The two of them exchanged blows in the courtyard. What is this woman doing? Little Pig, who was lying lazily at the door watching the drama unfold, suddenly stood up with his eyes wide open. It had thought that Luo Qingtong would directly transform into the life and death yin-yang sword, absorb the life blade, and harvest the death blade. Together with the raging flame cut she had obtained from Elder Lu, she would quickly finish off this inferior grade martial king assassin. But why was this woman fighting with him? Did she forget that I'm not a real martial king? If this went on, the energy in her body wouldn't be able to hold on. After all, the collision of sword lights was extremely exhausting. A true martial king realm expert had a vigorous aura, which was endless and flowed endlessly. He could attack in any way he wanted. But Luo Qingtong's cultivation was only at the martial general realm. Although her power was endless, her quality was far inferior to a real martial king realm. What was this woman up to again? Little Pig was anxious as he recalled Yi Qianxian's order to protect Luo Qingtong. If something really happened to this woman because of this, wouldn't he be skinned alive and have his tendons pulled out the next time he met that man? However, this woman asked him to stay here and watch, not letting him interfere. Really, what was this woman up to again? Don't play me to death. Little Pig was depressed as it paced back and forth on the floor with its 4 little hooves. Chapter 253. Bang. Luo Qingtong's sword light was suddenly shattered. Haha. Evil Dr. Guetong. Don't try to be brave if you're not a real martial king. You're dead. Give me your life. The middle grade martial king was overjoyed. He hurriedly waved his weapon and attacked Luo Qingtong. His attack just now was also very strange. This evil Dr. Ghost, I did not have the slightest bit of appearance that a martial general should have. Sword light against sword light, directly clashing with him for more than 10 moves. If it weren't for her aura indicating that she was a martial general, he would have thought that she was a real martial king. Her talent was simply monstrous to the extreme. But now, no matter how monstrous she was doomed. Haha. Arrogant and conceited, she was digging her own grave. While the low-grade martial king was shocked and relieved, he didn't show any mercy in his attacks. He directly and viciously attacked to kill. He must kill Luo Qingtong here. This kind of monstrous genius was too terrifying. There was no information about her strength in the pavilion. It could be seen how deep she hid. But this wasn't the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that this monstrous genius was actually a spiritual array master and an alchemist. Both of them were not weak. This was simply terrifying. Hey, this woman, she didn't fail miserably, did she? Seeing that the middle grade martial king's attack was about to hit Luo Qingtong, Little Pig felt that something was wrong. He stomped his hooves and rushed over to help. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's aura suddenly changed. Boom! A wave of air burst out from Luo Qingtong's body. The aura of a 9th grade martial general changed. It became the aura of a great martial general. It was as if a small bridge suddenly turned into a small river. The aura surging in the river was much more vigorous and cold. Rank up. Great martial general. Thank you for sparring with me. Luo Qingtong smiled wantonly under the Rakshasa ghost mask. When she left that man's side, She had a faint feeling that she was about to make a breakthrough in her cultivation realm. This time, with the help of this inferior martial king realm assassin, he finally made a breakthrough. Perfect promotion. His aura was extremely condensed. As a thank you gift, I'll send you on a painless journey of death. You don't have to thank me when you reach hell. After saying that, Luo Qingtong directly stretched out her hands. Because he had just advanced and filled up his meridians, the aura of power was boiling. In the next second, the unique aura of a great martial general suddenly erupted. First move of the heaven-conquering art, stealing heaven's fortune. It was the tyrannical killing move that Luo Qingtong had learned from Yi Qianxian. This time, without the assistance of the man's aura, Luo Qingtong clearly felt that the power of her move was much weaker. However, this weak was only relative to how she'd annihilated numerous half-saint realm experts with a single strike of her sword. The heaven-conquering art she'd displayed now, even if she'd only displayed 1/10 of its previous power, was not something that this inferior martial king realm assassin could resist. When Luo Qingtong said that she'd send him to hell, the latter snorted disdainfully. Even if the other party had suddenly advanced to the great martial general realm, she wouldn't be able to easily kill him, let alone send him to hell. However, when he saw Luo Qingtong's move, his eyes widened and filled with disbelief. Unstoppable, unstoppable. What level of move was this? Boom. A dark black sword light flashed. In an instant, the inferior martial king realm expert's eyes widened. He didn't even have time to scream as he fell straight down. Chapter 254. Phew. The moves taught by that man are indeed powerful. This was the first time that Luo Qingtong used her own strength to execute the moves taught by Yi Qianxian. Sure enough, the man's moves were no ordinary moves. She didn't know what level they were. She was only able to execute them with the help of the life and death yin-yang sword, which had just become a great general. Moreover, she was able to kill the inferior martial king realm assassin in one strike. This time Luo Qingtong didn't have Yi Qianxian's strength in her body. Last time, when she killed Elder Lu, she had to use Yi Qianxian's strength and raging flame slash to kill him. This time, she relied on her own strength to kill him. Moreover, the strength of this inferior martial king realm assassin was even stronger than Elder Lu's. It's good that I met that man this time. I didn't get caught in vain. Luo Qingtong let out a sigh of relief. She put away the life and death yin-yang sword, squinted her eyes and chuckled. This killing move could be used as a trump card. Who would have thought that she, a great general, could kill a martial king realm assassin? It would be great if she could use it to trick people in the future. Aya. Woman, you didn't even tell me you were doing something. You almost scared me to death. Little Pig jumped onto her shoulder at this time. It was really scared just now. It thought that this woman had overplayed her hand and failed. You underestimate me too much. Luo Qingtong casually lifted her hand and withdrew the formation around her. Then she flicked Little Pig's pink nose. Do you think I'm you? She had just sensed the possibility of a breakthrough, so she simply used the inferior martial king realm assassin to hone her skills. However, the effect was obviously very good. Luo Qingtong's life blade fought with the assassin while absorbing his strength and integrating it into her own body. This time, the promotion was perfect. His foundation was very solid. Even if she didn't use her pupil technique and the man's martial skill, Luo Qingtong could still defeat those of the same level. Supreme Assassin Pavilion. Turning the corpses over, Luo Qingtong searched their bodies. She only found a blank wooden tablet on the body of the inferior martial king realm expert. Other than that, there was nothing that could prove their identities. If Luo Qingtong had not seen a half-saint realm assassin dressed in the same clothes as these people from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion, she would not have known that these assassins were from the Supreme Assassin Pavilion. The security measures were pretty good. Luo Qingtong disposed of the corpses. She was secretly guessing who had hired the Supreme Assassin Pavilion to deal with her. Fortunately, the other party was obviously targeting her identity as an evil doctor, so the Luo family would not be implicated. Luo Qingtong circled a few candidates in her heart, then went straight back to her room and closed the door to sleep. Early the next morning, the waiter, who came to ask Luo Qingtong if she wanted to have breakfast, saw the courtyard full of destruction. It was as if a storm had passed through. He was instantly confused and hurried to call the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper hurried over and saw that his own backyard had almost been split in half. Only then did he understand what Luo Qingtong meant by compensation yesterday. Oh my God! Was that guest a professional demolisher? This courtyard had been completely torn down. The shopkeeper, who originally thought that he had made a fortune and cheated a big family, wanted to cry but had no tears. It turned out that the guest was so generous that she wanted him to use the money to repair the house. Fortunately, this guest lived in his own courtyard, not his own inn. Otherwise, wouldn't he suffer a great loss? Chapter 255. Dongli Country, Wingate City. The Luo family. Grandfather, why are you being so stubborn? In the courtyard where Old Master Luo lived, Luo Xinning appeared in front of Old Master Luo in a purple flowing dress. She was not as gentle as she used to be. Instead, she appeared domineering and arrogant. The Luo family will be mine sooner or later. Luo Xinning wore a light-colored veil on her face. She had removed her mask, and her eyes were full of ambition. Grandfather, even if you don't admit it, you can't change the fact. She looked at the angry elder Luo with a smile in her eyes. She bowed slightly, opened her hands, and twirled in front of elder Luo. Do you see? Grandfather, I'm already a martial general. And I'm a rank 4 martial general. I'm an intermediate martial general. How can Luo Qingtong compare to me? Luo Xinning smiled disdainfully. In terms of age, I'm younger than her. In terms of appearance, I'm not much worse than her. In terms of cultivation, she went through life and death in the 9 Magi Mountain, and only broke through to the martial master realm. How can it be compared to my rank 4 martial general? Grandfather, you didn't acknowledge my position in the Luo family, and even thought that I stole Luo Qingtong's things. But in this world, hasn't it always been the law of the jungle? I'm stronger than Luo Qingtong. Why should I be below her? You think I stole Luo Qingtong's things? I can tell you now. Without Luo Qingtong's recommendation letter, I can enter the Tianyu Branch Academy with my own strength. As for that armor, treasures have spirits and they belong to the capable. I'm stronger than Luo Qingtong. Of course, that armor should belong to me. At this point, Luo Xianning raised her head proudly. I don't want that recommendation letter anymore. But Luo Xinning smiled coldly and stroked her fingernails. Even if I don't use it, I won't give it to Luo Qingtong. Isn't it because of her engagement with the 5th prince that she is able to enjoy this special privilege? I'll let the world know that without the protection of the Tianyu royal family, Luo Qingtong is nothing. Grandfather, I have to thank you for this. Luo Xinning smiled. If you didn't protect Luo Qingtong and break off the engagement with the Tianyu royal family and humiliate them, I wouldn't have the opportunity today. My current strength is all thanks to you, Grandpa. In the future, when I trample Luo Qingtong to the bottom of the mud, I will definitely not forget Grandfather's deep love for me. Haha. Are you done? If you're done, then get lost. I don't have a granddaughter like you. Grandpa Luo glared coldly at the girl in purple in front of him. He didn't expect Luo Xinning. Luo Qingtong. Martial General Realm. She wondered how much effort Tianyu's royal family had put in to help her improve. Tianyu's royal family had put in a lot of effort just to make things difficult for him and Qingtong. Old Master Luo glanced at the 2 guards beside Luo Xinning who were obviously not weak. He suppressed the irritable urge to attack and chased them away rudely. He would not give those who obviously came with ill intentions a chance to attack. However, Luo Xinning did not care about what he said. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.